go ahead and get started this evening. First up, we're going to have the Skyline High School Indoor Track and Field recognition this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Pence, and I think Coach Allison is here to talk about our track and field. Right up here, sir.
Be perfect.
This winter, we had a successful indoor track season, went to the state meet, and it took, I think, 8 kids with us who did well down there. I want to mention their names and what they did, and have them stand up or come up here, whatever they want to do.
Just come on up.
Come on up. The first one is Loudon Shucker, who's one of our distance runners. Loudon was finished 8th in the 1,000, which, by the way, the kid that won the 1,000 had the best time in the country winning that race, so it was a very good race. Kid from Pulaski High School. But Loudon was able to run a 2:36, which is our school record. So he set the school record, even though he only finished 8th, he did set the school record. In the shot put, Marcus Lockhart Wright finished 16th in the shot put. In the long jump, Audrey Lacombe finished 14th in the long jump, the jump 15.8, and which is really good because, again, it's her first year of track and she's done very well. And our 4x8 relay team of Loudon, Jason Bushrod, Aaron Romo, and Sebastian Beaker finished 9th. And again, we ran in one of the early heats and we had a real good time, probably our best time all year. We thought we were going to do very well. And all of a sudden, the other teams got on the track, and it was like we're looking at them going down the track. I mean, track has gotten so good in the state of Virginia right now that it's just unbelievable. I took one of our kids up to Boston at the end of the track season, to jump at a national meet, and the speed is unbelievable. I mean, team from D.C., Carroll High School, won the 4x200 relay. And they were also second. The second team was second, and their first team set a national record. I mean, that's how good they were. And on top of that, their girls also won. So that's the kind of speed those schools have, who we're competing against now. So it's difficult. The last person I want to spend a few seconds on is our state champion, which is always nice to have. Hassan was our state champion this year in the high jump. He jumped 6'6". He just missed 6'8", which would have been a state record. I think this spring outdoors, he's got a chance of getting that. Although I think the state record is 7 feet, isn't it? This kid jumped last year, jumped 7 feet. So that's going to be maybe more than he can jump. But if he jumps 6'8", I'll be happy. But the 6'6" that he jumped was also a school record and a Warren County record for anybody in Warren County. And he also finished 8th in the 300 with a time of 35.81, which was also a school record and also the best time ever run in Warren County. So he had an outstanding track meet down at Lynchburg and Liberty College down there. I also want to thank my assistant coach, Coach Misty Bordner, who coached our distance runners. I don't know how she does it. I wouldn't do it. You don't see me run a whole lot of distance. She can, but I can't. Coming from here, my seat up to here was enough distance for me. I'm more of a sprint coach, but believe it or not, I was a sprinter at one time. But this group performed very well and did a good job for us this winter. It used to be called indoor track. We call it winter track because that's what it is. We're outside no matter what the weather is. If it's 25 degrees, we're still out there running. We were out there a couple of days it snowed, a couple of days it rains, but we're out there doing it. So it's very good to have these kids doing it for us. And we thank the support of Warren County for supporting our teams for the trips down there and the equipment and everything that we have as well. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
I'm going to get a picture of you guys before you go sit down. Let's get a picture of everybody, please.
Close in here. Thank you.
Is there a motion to accept or modify our agenda this evening?
I move that the agenda be accepted as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Next up, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Next up this evening, we have reports. First up, we have an ESS update. Mr. Smith. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry? Oh, wow. Used to you guys doing it. Let's see if I get this right. The light's coming on. It's on. Good evening, board. Thank you for having me again tonight. Caught me off guard. I'm used to the security doing the report first, so I thought we had one more. Just kind of the same agenda that we do every month. If you want to skip ahead to the next slide. For March and beyond, Amy's been doing a ton of things. Table chat at Laurel Ridge, Shenandoah University, the career internship at LRCC. I'll be attending the career day, job fair at a local library, and one of the things we're putting together for the subs after the year's over, Amy worked a deal out with, oh man, I forget the name of the minor league baseball team. Cardinals, that's what I thought it was, where we're going to have a day where we're going to pay for tickets for them, send them and their families, and we worked it out with the Cardinals. They'll get on-field recognition. They have a whole little thing. So she did a great job putting that all together, and definitely a great way to appreciate and show our subs that they're valued. Skipping on to the next slide. At the bottom there you have March. We jumped out that one more point from 79 from February back up to 80. We skip to the next one. I should say March info, that's my fault. District fill rate 80%. After we factor in the building coverage, we're at 99%. Last month we quoted we had over 1,000 assignments picked up between April 1st and May 31st. We can update that over 1,200 jobs have now been picked up through the end of the school year. February snapshot, again, we were at that 79%. Jumping to next month, there's all the breakdown for the absences. Very standard stock, what we'd seen before, 80%, well 79, 80% for the fill rate, 98% for that rate after the building subs. Into March, we jumped up to 80%, filled 958 at 1,240 spots. That's an improvement of 2% over previous year, 78%. Jumping into the March absences, you'll see the breakdown. Kind of the same thing, like I said, once the building subs are factored in, we're at like a 98, 99% overall. So great coverage for the schools. And then finally, like, not finally, but we have the cost broken down by building. I'm sorry, I apologize. Right now, we're at that total of $798,429.15 for the current year, leaving us a little bit of breathing room for next month and the end of school into May. If you want to skip to the next one. This is the breakdown as far as what's left budgetarily across the schools. As you can see, some of them have, obviously with the things like the breakout, the pneumonia breakout, Ressie Jeffries, they're sitting a little negative to that negative 18 compared to, say the Warren County High School, that's up, 29,000 different compared to last year. So bottom tab number there is 25,000 left over, tracking it 8% under last year. And so far, if you the final column, that 83,000, that's the difference between last year and this year so far. We expect to see the numbers go down a little bit. We haven't factored in, I was talking with the administration today, we're gonna get the long terms factored in as well. So that'll help reduce the budget down as well, and you'll see more allocation for the schools. But That's all we have right now. Were there any questions? Always enjoy
you.
coming and visiting you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Miss Lowe, could you turn your mic towards you just a little bit?
Just so they can pick up a little bit more. Next up this evening, we have the FY 24-25 mid-year review survey report from Ms. Straight.
Hello and good evening. So I was going to present this at last work session, which would have been aligned a little bit closer with mid-year, but I was at a recruiting event, so here we are in April talking about the mid-year review. So timeliness, I apologize for. Hopefully, won't be at a career fair next time to be able to present this. So, but I do think it's really nice to highlight our survey. Are you gonna click? Thank you. From our employees and who was able to participate. So we did have, at the time, I think over 750 full-time employees that this went out to. Only 368, which is over half, so I'll take that, chose to respond or right about there. Which is nice. And so this is my first survey presenting out to the school. This is something they've done in the past, but just wanted to go over the results. Did a little competition to encourage participation. So a nice little shout out to Dunkin' Donuts, who donated 100 donuts to us to give to the school who participated the most, which was Skyline High School. Got some fun pictures of those, should have added that in. But they did have the highest response rate. Our bus drivers do not have Warren County Public Schools emails, so those were manually sent over to them, and then we plugged them in. So tried again to capture as many employees as we could. But we did capture 368 results, which I think is phenomenal. Our tenure of employee, when you look at this, so we didn't want it to be identifiable, right? We wanted to make sure this was anonymous to our employees to feel, comfortable to give honest feedback. But when you look at the tenure of our employees, the majority of our employees right now are sitting between years 2 and 5, and the majority of them are professional. So obviously we have the most FTEs and teachers, so that does make sense. But we did have 23% of our support staff respond. But again, I think the tenure is kind of nice when you look at, we've got kind of the lower end, and then you've got people with over 18 years. So we kind of have that gap in the middle with that on who responded. Overall satisfaction. So one of my takeaways is next year I'm going to get rid of neutral. I'm going to have them select what they would like. So it might have just been a default when we were creating this. But the majority of our employees are satisfied. And when you do combine you're very satisfied with your satisfied, we're already well over 56% and satisfied. And that's just general. So it was just generally how satisfied are you coming into work. And so, I think a lot of us ask ourselves that, like, are we happy coming in? Is it doom and gloom today? And it's not. The majority of our employees are very satisfied or satisfied coming into Warren County Public Schools, which is great, and hope to continue to increase that trend once we find out where that 19.3% lands in the future. For our building administrators, so this is really, this could be your principals, this could be your directors, anybody in those categories. But as far as satisfaction with their building administrator, again, we had very satisfied at 38.6% and 36.1% satisfied. Open to interpretation. I kind of look at it as, am I happy coming into work? Am I happy who I work with and for? And we do have the majority of our employees happy with who they report to. Do our employees feel encouraged and supported by their building administrator? So kind of breaking it down a little bit. Yes, so very simple, yes or no, and then occasionally we did throw in there, but 71.2, again, of the 368 participants say yes, they do feel supported and encouraged. Occasionally, 22% said yes, and then a very small percent said no. If our employees feel their ideas are valued by the building administrator, again, just a very nice alarming yes. 69% said yes, and occasionally 23% said yes. So I think our administrators, our directors, those managers are doing a phenomenal job with their employees, with the overall satisfaction and supporting their employees that we have at Warren County Public Schools. Do our department goals align with Warren County Public Schools culture? Yes, 78.8% of our participants said yes. Occasionally at 18.8%. You know, as far as our culture, what we're looking to do every day. So I'll take 78%. Kind of talked to the team when we had presented this that, you know, next year we're always going to strive for more and better, and then kind of dig a little bit deeper to see what else we can look to improve upon, or just keep doing what we're doing, because if it's working right, don't reinvent it. For job expectations and responsibilities. So the majority, so this was kind of a two-part question, where the second part, only a few that didn't feel so actually needed to answer it. But the majority do feel the job expectations and responsibilities are clearly communicated, but 34% said they're somewhat clear. So just kind of wanted to understand that. So if they're not clear on that, how can we better help, right, and look at that? So, you know, we'll navigate that as we continue to move forward. But yes, 62.2%, yes, very clear. Of that 34%, the 12.7 didn't know where to go to get the answers. Again, that could just be a job description, that could be additional responsibilities, that could be, you know, anything that really they're looking for. We have some area of opportunity there, but would like to, you know, I'm glad that 67.3 knew where to go to get the information, even if it wasn't clear to them. But again, just kind of focusing on that smaller percentage on improving throughout the years. For training and support, so we obviously invest a lot into our employees with their training, coaching, developing. So as far as satisfaction with the quality of training and support, quality does matter. Very satisfied and satisfied. We are well over the 60% margin there. Again, I'm a little disappointed I added neutral, because I would love to know where those 24% fall. But still, having over the majority, over 60% of our employees feel that the quality of what we're doing is beneficial is good to see. Satisfaction with the amount of training and support that they received. Again, we're over 50% between satisfied and very satisfied. Again, that 27% would like to know where they fall. So next year we'll have a better idea. But, you know, if we're needing more training, more development, I would always encourage employees to reach out to their building administrator to say what that is, so we can hopefully get them the tools and resources needed. Or maybe it's one of those, I don't know where to go for the information, let's help them find it. But again, 50% say, yeah, we spend a pretty good time on the amount of training and support we have. And then satisfaction with the resources for the positions. Again, we're well over the 50% mark with being very satisfied and satisfied. The dissatisfied is 16.3%, so it is just the minority that you know, would like to see maybe more resources for their position. And with it being, you know, individualized, I'm not really sure if that could be any position and what they're looking for. So I'm hoping, you know, that we have good communication out there. When we did kind of an open question, what's going well, what are some opportunities, feedback, communication was one that we do really well at that, and that was something else that it was an area of opportunity. So it's kind of, it can go both ways on what maybe we're really good at communicating on and what we can improve upon. But always for those individuals looking for more resources, just really needing to ask and let us know, and we have a wonderful team that will be able to get that for them. Alrighty, that is our mid-year survey review. Very happy to present that. Again, would probably be a little bit better not at the end of the year and get rid of some neutral questions. I'll figure that out as we go, but any questions that you have? Yeah.
Is this survey done elsewhere? Is there anything to benchmark it with in a sense, or did you just make this up, or do other school divisions do this?
So other school, we had a Region 4 HR Summit. Some of them have hired out, you know, a company to come in and do that. As far as costs, you know, this year wasn't the year that we were going to do that. Where they can do that comparative year over year. I did change some of the questions this year, so doing a comparative to what they did last year probably isn't gonna be equal or fair. But hopefully sticking with that, getting rid of the neutral. I don't wanna make a ton of changes. I want the feedback, but I do want that year over year. How are we actually
Right.
improving for the data? I don't disagree with, so.
And did, for each of these, was there a section for comments about each of the different sections? You said there was something at the end that they could sort of.
Yeah, so in my surveys that I've ever participated in or done, I don't like open form questions because it can, it can range from anything to everything. So I just asked two, what's going well and what are some areas of opportunity? So it did not leave comments for each question.
Okay.
But no, I appreciate the question.
And then when we had around 50% participation,
Yeah.
was that, I know you were doing it the first time, was that your expectation, or do you sort of think we'd have 40% or 75%, or was 50%?
I kind of set the bar high, so I was really hoping for like 80%.
Okay.
Is just my mindset going into this. I think it's a great resource to have. I know not everybody likes surveys or wants to do them. I had a few people reach out and they said, the feedback I got was, hey, I support 2 schools, so which administrator am I talking about? And that was really good feedback for me because I had not considered that. But I didn't do a lot of open forum questions, and I had a higher expectation, so I'll take this for today.
And I think
Yeah.
50% is about average in some of our other surveys that we've done with staff, so that's probably about par.
Did you give each school and department their individual pie chart answers so they know?
No, this was just holistic to all of Warren County Public Schools because the feedback I heard from last year is that they tried to do that by school and sorry, this must have changed. Individuals felt, from the feedback I've received, was that they felt it was too identifiable to them and that school. And so this year we just made it more of how are we doing as Warren County Public Schools since we are one, but I agree with kind of breaking that down would be nice too.
I think it would just be helpful to see
Yeah.
if there's areas of dissatisfaction or more resources needed in a particular
Correct.
school.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, I agree.
So I have a
Yeah.
question that's not necessarily pertaining to the survey, but it made me think. You said that the bus drivers don't have email addresses.
Correct.
So when county information goes out, like, I'm sure you send out, HR information, it's that time of year to do this, or anything that goes out from central office. I'm sure that, there's a system in place at transportation so that they have access to all of that, but is that something that we need to consider for them to have email access to access that? I just want to make sure they don't feel that they're not receiving any pertinent information.
Right.
Because we live in a day and age where we either send it out via an app or an email. It just kind of caught my ear there that you said they don't have email addresses.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that,
No, and that's something
Yeah.
we definitely can look into, and
Yeah.
we can talk to Doug about that. I don't see a problem with.
Some of the problem is that
But
they don't have computers, they've only got like 1 or 2 computers for the bus drivers to check. So if they were checking email, it would be primarily on a device or something at home.
gotcha. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, and
Yeah.
I guess if it hasn't come up as a concern, if they haven't said, hey, I feel like I'm not getting the latest information, that's not an issue, but I just want to make sure that they
Yeah.
have that equal access to all of that.
Yeah. Anything else?
Let's go for 80 next year.
That's right.
80%.
That's right. I got it. All right, thank you.
Next up this evening, we have our local wellness policy draft. Ms. Bernazza.
Good afternoon. Each local education agency participating in the National School Lunch Program and/or the School Breakfast Program must develop a wellness policy to provide schools with structure and guidance to promote student wellness and ensure that school meals and other foods and beverages sold are consistent with federal standards. To develop a Warren County Public Schools local school wellness policy draft, a wellness committee was formed that included myself, Nicole Brown, Director of Nutrition, Heather Bragg, Danelle Sperling, Carla Scott, the Curriculum Coordinator for Health and PE, and Lori Lehman, Principal of AS Rhodes. We developed this draft based on the Model Policy Guidance document from the VDOE. Back in February, when I presented an update on our comprehensive plan regarding health and safety, I mentioned the draft and that it would be going out for public comment, and it did. We sent it out March 3rd through March 12th, and here is the updated draft based on feedback that we received. So with this is our final draft and just wanted to let you know that in May, we would like to seek board approval.
Did you get a lot of feedback from it being out on comment?
I thought I would receive a lot for the first time seeking public comment on anything. I got 6, and I was told, well, don't get down, but it was very positive. I'll say I did highlight a few if you don't mind if I just share.
Sorry.
Because I got excited getting feedback for the first time. One community member said, I think it's very well written, and I'm happy to see that Warren County will continue to provide school breakfast and lunch. I know a lot of kids rely on schools to provide foods, sometimes the only food that they'll eat during the day. So thank you for your continuation of the vital program for our community. Another member expressed that they're very impressed with the nutrition program. I find it thoughtful and thorough. The students are very fortunate to be in a school that cares so much. We had another individual say, I would like WCPS to continue to offer as little heavily processed foods as possible, and I think we should try to do business with some local beef and poultry farms if possible. And thank you, Ms. Brown, and to her department. We added some more information into this draft document because we're doing those things, and I think it's important that we highlight that in this document. Another feedback we got, that we received, thank you for the opportunity for us to provide input to the policies of our schools. I appreciate that sodiums, trans fats, and whole grains are taken into account when considering student meals. However, I think that the amount of sugar in meals should be considered. Great point. Thank you, Mrs. Brown and her department. It is considered, so let's highlight that. So we're very proud of this document, and again, you'll see it again in May as we seek some approval. We seek your approval.
I just had a question. Will the changes with the petroleum-based food dyes, will that impact, or are we already food dye free, or we'll be moving towards food dye free?
Yeah, as products become reformulated and the dyes are taken out, those will become available, I'm sure, to school food, and we will transition to whatever those changes are made. So we look forward to those changes. Yeah.
Thank you for knowing that, Ms. Brown. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next up, we have a school resource officer report.
So
update.
she'll be here, but at 6, so we'll just go ahead and I'll skip on down one, and
Okay.
hopefully we'll be, she'll walk in by the time we get back. So just going to review the discipline report. We did change that report as requested by the board to look at year over year. So on this report, you can see we have AS Roads, March 2024, 2025, comparing that to 23-24. On these numbers, you can see there's a reduction there at AS Roads of 6 incidents. E. Wilson Morrison, you can see that, one, they didn't have a lot of incidents anyway, but it did increase by 2. They went from 4 to 6. Moving on down into HJB, again, we saw a decrease at HJB. Also, one thing you can point out, looking at ISS, last year at this time they had 13 ISS. This year they've only had 3. So just comparing that ISS versus OSS as well. Looking at LFK, we did see an increase of 4 when looking at that. And again, these categories are going to be fluid from year to year, depending upon what happened at the school, what the incident was, how it is coded according to the Virginia Department of Education. So the only thing, like for instance, if you're wanting to look and say, okay, yes, there was RB8, profane and vulgar language, that went up by 4 from last year to this year. Again, you can see the reduction in ISS, OSS, and notifications there. Then looking at Ressie Jeffries, now we did see an increase of 12 this year to Ressie Jeffries. A couple areas to point out that were a little different from last year. RB 11, unwanted inappropriate physical contact, that was 12 this year. There was only 4 incidents last year. Then of course they had a couple of, if you look at BC 14, that's a fight with no injury, and BES 03, fight with minor. They had a few fights this month versus they didn't have any in the previous year. And that would equate to also some of the notifications to the SRO for some of those situations. Then Skyline Middle School, you can see there was a decrease of 10 incidents. Also, you can see the decrease, slight decrease in ISS, OSS. Then looking at Warren County Middle School, we did see an increase of about 6 incidents this year versus last year. At Skyline Middle School, the one that I was highlighting there was probably the BS 016 in this year. They did not have any students that were designated student in an unauthorized area of campus last year. So, there were 6 new referrals this year for not being in their appropriate place. And so therefore, that could be a reason for some of the 6 instances. But again, just remember, this is always fluid from year in to year out, from student to student. Skyline High School, there was an increase of 28 incidents this year. A couple areas I did note there. BS 03, refusal to comply with staff. Last year there were 17, this year there was 25. BS 015, student not going to class as assigned. This year 15, last year there was only 3. So, you're seeing some of those increases. Now, the one thing I would also like to point out is that if you look at ISS and OSS, there was a reduction from 30 to 16. 9 to 7, and then notifications to the SRO for the month was from 7 to 2 year over year. Warren County High School, again, a decrease of 4 incidents, and again, just looking at their numbers. Now, their OSS for this month of 2024-25, their OSS was a little higher than last year. So that just, again, depends upon the infraction. And then, of course, there is not a year-over-year report to compare non-traditional, because last year was all included in the schools, but we are still breaking out this year's non-traditional so that you can see those incidents at non-traditional. Now, next year, you'll be able to get a year-over-year.
For people with the cell phone usage, or however that's working, if someone's caught with their cell phone, which one does it fall under?
So, there's not, if you look at the policy is not a discipline. It is it's a removal of the device. Okay. A call, so a call to the parent, it's a warning by the teacher, a warning, then the administrator gets involved, then it's a call, and then it's a removal of the device. So there's not a discipline per se. If you wanted to get into it, it could be failure to comply with guidance. That would be the one that we would tag it to if we did want to, if we continue to had to repeat, tells a student, put it away. Now we're going to issue this discipline as far as a failure to comply with a directive.
How has it been going since the full implementation in January?
I think, from what I see from administrators and what I hear from administrators, I mean, there's more engagement with students interacting. We haven't had the issues. I think they're still trying to police some things. Students will try to pop up their hoodie and they got their earbud in and, walking down the hall, and so you have to have them take their hoodie off and then tell them to remove their earbud because they're listening to music, which they're not supposed to be doing. And so, it's catching all of those things that students, they try to get around things, and so it's just administrators staying on top of that. But you are seeing students adhere more to the cell phone policies. Now, is there room to crack down on it a little more? Yes, there is. And, should we consider, more of a first offense, second offense, third offense type thing? That is something I was going to talk to administrators over the summer to kind of see what their thoughts were after implementing this for a little bit, to see if we need to stick with our current method, or if adding some offenses in there, first maybe a in-school suspension for 1 day, the next 3 day, then it moves to out-of-school suspension. If we need to add anything like that. So I plan on talking to administrators over the summer to get their feedback on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the discipline report? Okay, we're gonna go back up to the school resource officer report and update, please.
Hello, sorry about the delay today. I had my schedules mixed up. Let me pull this up. Oh, he's got it pulled up here for me. So first I want to start off saying it looks like a higher number of increase in March. It was, but it was our first full month back to school with not all the absences that we had seen throughout December, January, and February. So it looks a little high, but that's because we were back the full month of March. Most of those incidents involved assaults or fights, essentially. We had a couple of informationals at our elementary schools, but overall the majority of them were just fights. I believe out of most of them, I don't believe there were any charges filed. It was more mutual combat kind of ordeals, so nothing major of that. So I've kind of like what you've been doing, I've been putting together the data from last January to this January, because that's when I fully started taking over and kind of matching the data. So by next month, you'll see I'm going to do a January to May 2024-25 comparison to kind of see where we were at. And I think you will see decreases. A lot of those decreases is going to be because we're not doing vapes, right? We're not seeing those. We haven't had a lot of even the THC vapes that we've been seeing. There's been a decrease from last year to this year. So I'll be able to pull some of that data. It's just going to be January to May versus the entire school year. But in the future, I hope next school year I'll be able to do a month-to-month, year-by-year comparison so that we can really see where we're at, what's trending, and kind of hone in better on that. We did just finish Dare Up. We didn't get to do our actual Dare Day because of the rain and the weather, and we didn't want to have the kids out there in the 30-degree weather. So what we actually did was we did mock Dare Days at each of the individual schools. So we've already did AS Roads and LFK. We took everything to them. So we rotated each station that they would have gotten to go to at the actual Dare Day, and we just made it a little bit more personable for each class. And I actually think it worked out better because the kids got to spend a lot more time with fire and rescue, and they got to do some crawling on the ground scenarios with fire and rescue because it was a lot smaller and more detailed. So each group ended up spending about an hour and a half with each grade or each school. So like even our SOT SWAT team, the kids would come, run by, check out everything, and they'd be gone. They were there for almost 2 hours just because the kids were just so excited and wanted to try on things. So it really gave a personal touch versus trying to have all 400 of them at once. So I think that was really good. We're set to do Russie Jeffries on May 19th. So even though it got rained out, we're trying to kind of navigate the waters to make sure the kids still get their day. I did just announce the Dare Day essay and poster winners. So the principals were able to get that today, and we were going to be hosting a day at the sheriff's office on May 7th for our essay and poster winners to tour the sheriff's office, kind of get to see a little hands-on things, and we're going to do a pizza party and give them their awards that night so that they still get honored with the other schools so that everybody can be together for that. And then the last update, I sent emails out to all the administrators today, is Warren County Sheriff's Office is having, in partnership with the National Wildlife Turkey Federation and Game and Inland Fisheries, Saturday is going to be Cops and Bobbers down at Ben Crosby Stadium. Lines go in at 7:30. There will be prizes and things like that for the biggest fish, and they're going to stock the creek the night before. So we're hoping to get as many kids out there to fish as we can, and have a great day. So that's all I have. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we're going to move into our action agenda this evening. First up is going to be the approval of the local plan for career and technical education, Perkins FY26 funding. And is there anyone here besides Mr. Gregg who would like to speak on this?
Try not to do that.
No, you're good. I think you're good, Mr. Gregg. And I know you're trying to wrap both your items together, correct?
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Yes, my daughter has her last choral performance of 5th grade, so I'm in the doghouse a little bit for being here tonight. But yes, I'm presenting our application for the 25-26 school year for Perkins funding. For the record, Perkins funding, it comes from a federal grant, so these aren't local tax dollars, but they are really important to our county CTE programming. This covers cost at not just the Blue Ridge Tech Center, but also both of our middle schools and our high schools. So it's everything from equipment purchases to testing, professional development for teachers, just a lot of routine costs. So the state asks us to use this year's award amount and basically propose how we would spend it next year using that same amount. We'll find out typically in July what our actual award amount is, and then I'll go back and amend this to reflect those actual numbers. But it's been pretty close the last 2 years. For reference, there is a trending decrease from year to year the last 3 years. 22-23, we had about $130,000 awarded to us. 23-24 was about 105. This year we were at 99. I don't know that that's going to continue or improve for us next year. When we first saw that first drop, we reached out to VDOE. We're not really privy to a lot of the calculations that go on to determine what our award amount is. We were told that poverty rates have gone down in Warren County, which is a good thing, but that was impacting what we were receiving from Perkins grant funding. So again, we'll see what shakes out as we get into the summer. I'm not going to go line by line through that schedule that you guys have. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. The way it works is we make purchases up front throughout the year, and then I submit for reimbursement through the state system, Omega. They cut us a check as long as what I'm submitting to them meets their requirements. So sometimes it becomes kind of like working a puzzle backwards in the sense that we're spending and then submitting for reimbursement. So what you see on that schedule are just costs that I know we're going to incur. I know we're going to send all of our 8th graders to World of Work in the fall at Shenandoah University. I know that we're going to be a Project Lead the Way school at the Tech Center. You know, those two items are about $8,000 to $9,000, so they're in the plan. And again, the key is just things that we know we're going to spend on anyway and that we know meet the criteria to be reimbursed. I know Rick Gardner and his deck of kids are going to have to fly to Anaheim or something crazy because they do so well. So we're able to use funds like that, and that's reflected in that plan. Does anybody have any questions about what you see there?
Is there a motion on this?
I move that the 2025-26 local Perkins Career and Technical Education Plan be approved as presented with the knowledge that amendments will occur as information becomes available.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Pence, I do need a signature. Would it be okay for me to bring this over to you?
Perfect. And then you're going to talk to us about the CTE advisory committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I can swing back and
Yeah,
grab
I'll bring it back.
Yes, so Dr. Ballinger asked me to talk a little bit about our CTE advisory committee that we maintain. That's something that we maintain to be eligible to receive Perkins funding. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And so really it's a great opportunity. Ideally, if we were in a position funding-wise to start a new program, like I would love to start an HVAC program. I know we're not there budget-wise, but let's say we were. Ray Bramble is a member of our CTE advisory committee. He runs AirServe here in town. We would sit down with Ray and look at, you know, what's a good piece of equipment to get us started. What types of tools will we need? What types of training would you like to see in the field? He would advise us on, what equipment initially would we purchase to jumpstart that program. We talk a lot we have members from the local EDA, Chamber of Commerce, we have a parent rep, a student rep, we have some CTE teachers that join us. Part of me talking about it today is hopefully there's some people out there in the community that hear this and would love to reach out and join that team as well. We have some special education teachers to help talk about transition after high school with those students. And it really, again, if we were starting a new program, they could help us figure out what do we need to get it off the ground. They could also look at what we currently offer. Are we competitive in terms of, or maybe comparable is the word I should use, is the equipment, the tools, the training that we're providing students, is it actually preparing them for what they're going to see in the field? And then informally, what comes out of that team, we always feed any members, so if anybody's watching this thinking maybe I should look into it, our culinary kids typically provide a meal, so that's really cool. Community members get to come out and enjoy that, and our students love that. But there's just some informal growth. So maybe through a conversation we're having, we learn about some soft skill gaps that employers are seeing. We talked about cell phones earlier. A lot of the folks that we talk to in those meetings say, if I had employees that knew to stay off their cell phones when they're dealing with clients, that would be great. And we kind of filter that into our informal conversations with kids about soft skills. Also, some internship opportunities have come out, some job shadow opportunities or things like classroom visits, just kind of grow organically out of the conversations we have with that team. So again, if anybody hears this, if you're an employer in town, if you run a business, just an interested community member, we've had participation from the Warren Coalition. Anybody who has a vested interest in our kids and thinks they could contribute to that is more than welcome to give me a call. I'd be happy to talk to you, answer any questions, and if you'd like to come to a meeting, we'll at least feed you a good meal. So, any questions about that?
How often do they meet, did you say?
We shoot for twice a year.
Twice a
Our
year.
last meeting was in February. It can be kind of tough to get everybody together because, everybody's working and has different schedules. We've tried after school hours, we've tried during the daytime, but we typically get a pretty well-rounded group of folks to just sit down and talk.
Are there any particular industries? I know you welcomed other people to kind of raise their hand and contact you. Anyone you're particularly looking for? Any particular industry you'd
I am more than happy to have anybody, but anything that aligns well to our current programming, so carpentry, electricity, welding, automotive, culinary. We've actually been struggling to find a culinary representative for the team, so anybody who maybe runs a restaurant in town, that would be great. But again, we're happy to have anybody who's interested, who can come and contribute some ideas, and it's all about just opportunities for the kids.
Thank you.
What is it going to take? What do we need to get the HVAC program up and running?
It would take funding. I mean, we would need a new teacher, so there's salary cost and benefits cost. And then, we need space. Our building's pretty much at capacity at this point if we were going to be able to offer it to both high schools. And then there'd be some significant equipment at the beginning of that we would have to purchase. Equipment in particular is becoming complicated for us. There's also some state money that we apply for and receive. There's 5 state entitlement grants that we get. 3 of them cover credential testing. 2 of them can be used for equipment purchases. There's a local maintenance of effort, though, that we have to meet. So between Perkins reimbursements for equipment and this about $15,000, $16,000 that we get from the state, it can be very difficult to be able to also purchase $4,500, which is ballpark our local requirement of equipment. And so if we're not hitting that, we get to a point where we probably have to start leaving some of those state entitlement funds on the table. I'm kind of looking at that right now this year. I think we'll make it. The challenge is the rising cost of consumable materials, which comes out of that same fund. I mean, the cost of sheet of steel for welding, groceries in particular are insane for our culinary program. We budget $6,000 for the year for that class. I wish I could feed my family of 3 on $6,000 worth of groceries for 10 months. So equipment is becoming a sticking point for us, and I do worry that if funding doesn't improve in that respect, we're going to have to start leaving some money on the table that we're currently accessing because we just can't make enough purchases with money that's coming from local dollars.
So I'm sorry, I want to make sure I heard the amount right. You said $4,500, just $4,500?
I could give you the exact amount, but it's about $4,500. Again, the problem is it all comes out of the same pot that we're buying durable equipment and consumable items from it. As the cost of consumables have gone up, we're purchasing more and more of that, and we're not able to purchase, I'm basically able to purchase just enough equipment to get reimbursed from the state and from Perkins, and it's very challenging to, carve out that $4,500. We'll hit it this year, but I do worry going forward how that's gonna look.
And then would your facility be the location where, there was talk about the ROTC? Would that be something that would be in the schools, or would that be in a Blue Ridge Tech type?
I mean, we do
scenario?
offer a certain CTE classes at each high school. I'm a big proponent of, I'd like to see it available to kids at both high schools.
Okay.
So again, it's a space issue there. I do have one common meeting space that we use for staff meetings that could conceivably, with some work, be turned into a classroom, depending on what type of classroom. If it was going to be an HVAC lab, for example, we'd have to get rid of some carpeting and do some things with ventilation that would cost some money. Something that wouldn't require that, we could probably flip it over at the loss of a place to have meetings and that sort of thing, but I'd rather have classroom space.
Okay. And then with the bringing of all the industry back home, is there any hope or plan to do any type of training for those types of productions, especially if there's grant money that becomes available? Computer chip manufacturing, things of that nature that we're talking about, bringing everything back home to the United States.
So like mechatronics, I was really interested in that, the idea of like people that work on these robotic arms. The closest overlap we have with that would be our Project Lead the Way engineering class. We do some robotics and, design elements like that. But we, again, to start a program like that, you need to find a licensed teacher. You're gonna have to purchase a lot of really expensive equipment, and you have to have space. We're at capacity in terms of space, and my understanding when I hear about the budget is there's just not a whole lot of room for additional staff at this point, so.
Any additional questions for Mr. Gregg?
Great, well, thank y'all, I appreciate it.
Next up this evening, we have the first reading of GDBD, support staff leaves and absences, and GDBD-E3, unpaid leave of absence request form. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this evening? Okay, Ms. Drake.
All right, good evening again. This is just the first reading, but just kind of wanted to give an overview on why I'm looking to ask the board to approve to update this. So right now, if you look at the GDBD-E3, this is for support staff only. At some point, depending on this conversation, would like to adjust this to professional staff as well, but really wanted to start here due to the impact. So right now, when you look at this request form, so if somebody needs to go out on a leave of absence, so maybe they don't qualify for FMLA or short-term disability, as a woman, I'll just use myself as an example. If I am a new hire as a support staff, I'll make myself a bus driver, and I am pregnant, I am not qualified for FMLA because I haven't worked here long enough. And so I would be asking, like, hey, I would like to retain my position. However, I would need approval for that leave of absence form. So right now, if you look at our current form, a physician has to fill that out and say that it's okay for them to be out. In the history of my career, I've never seen that. Like, yes, I need a doctor's note, but then the company or the organization would then make the determination if we were going to approve a leave of absence. So I'm not sure how or where that originated from, but I would be looking to change it. With the request form, it would go from the employee would make the request, they would give it to their administrator. One of the effects of approving this is that you are holding that position like FMLA similar, and you have to be able to be okay with that person being out for up to 12 weeks, whatever they're requesting, for them to be able to come back in that same position or that similar position, not affecting their pay or hours, things of that nature. So I'd like to change the request form, again, going from employee to administrator to human resources to review and approve, which then would mean I would have to change the policy along with that. So GDBD, that top, I'm sorry, Sarah. We're good, okay. The very top paragraph is what's actually only listed in the policy. So everything from unpaid personal leave of absence policy down is new on what would be added. So a lot of this just really covers the responsibility. So if I were to approve somebody to go out on a leave of absence, you have to exhaust all of your leave first before you can go unpaid. And if at that point you go unpaid and you take benefits with us, like, you are still obligated to pay your portion of those benefits. So it's really covering that. It gives some time frames so that way we can prepare for you to go out, prepare for you to return, and things of that nature. So again, a leave of absence doesn't just have to be for medical needs. You know, it could be a loss of a loved one and needing some additional time to be with them or take care of those things, just because, again, they wouldn't qualify for FMLA or short-term disability, things of that nature. So that would be the first reading, but happy to answer any questions or make notes of anything that you've seen so far.
So you're basically taking out the requirement of a doctor's note for that leave of absence.
I'm looking to take out that the physician approves the leave of absence form. We would still require, if somebody goes out for like a medical, that they still have to have a medical note clearing them full duty to come back to work. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you model this policy on some other district's policy?
Society of Human Resources Management is where I leaned
They
on.
sound important, that's good.
Sorry. It's where I'm a member of, but this is very similar to organizations I've worked in before, and that's why I chuckle, but I've never seen a doctor say, yes, you can go out on a leave of absence. Like, that should be up to the superintendent ultimately to say, yes, we can have you go out or not. So, but yeah, but this is very common in other industries.
Have we thought about how this might affect our sub-budget?
It could impact that if they've hit their 1,250 hours or their year with us. They would qualify for FMLA anyways, or potentially short term. So I think that could be a risk. But I think if they've been here and they qualify for it anyways, then we don't legally have a choice. So I think it's just trying to take care of the employees and offering it to them. But it could have an impact.
When I first read this, but hearing you explain it is certainly helpful, that this is just extending FMLA to people who have not yet qualified for it for duration purposes. But when I first read it, my only concern is they don't want people to think, oh, I can just go on sabbatical.
Right.
And I don't know if there's any possible way to add verbiage in here about how the expectation is still that you should be meeting the requirements or the specific instances that FMLA would be intended for, that this is not, hey, I just need a break from adulting for a while and
Right.
let us pay for the sub bill while they're gone.
Right. Let me see if I can find something similar. It is kind of broken down in here. I do relate it to FMLA and the Americans Disability Act. So I have that reference in here, not maybe as clear as maybe what you're looking for. So let me see if I can find some type of verbiage to say this is kind of an extension of. I'll look into that.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Any other questions for Ms. Drake this evening?
Nope. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up this evening, we have the first reading of GCCB, Employment of Family Members, GCBA, Leave Without Pay, GCBI, Civic Duties. Is there anyone before Dr. Costner who would like to speak on this evening? Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. As you know, our school board subcommittee on policies has been meeting, and there have been different policies that have been reviewed and submitted. We do have 3 policies that have been reviewed and are submitted for the first reading. Just to let you know, with these policies, when you look at them, GCCB and also GCBEA, there are no actual changes that were made recommendations for this first reading. And then on policy GCBI, there was one sentence that was added under paragraph 2, where it says employees shall not be required to use sick leave or vacation leave to fulfill jury duty, or if they have been subpoenaed to appear in court for job-related legal transactions. So that is something that was added to the that policy. So I bring forth these 3 policies for you. Again, this is the first reading, but if you see anything that you would like to have added or deleted, I'll be glad to look into that for you.
Just since that statement was added that they are not required to use sick leave or vacation leave, is there an option, you know, if a personnel staff member is in that position when they need to put in their leave, do they have another option to mark?
In
if
Red
they-
Rover?
Whatever.
Yeah, in
their
our
system.
system.
Yeah.
I'll check into that and look and see. I
Yeah,
don't know
to
if
make
there
sure that-
may be an other
Yeah.
or something of that nature. I think it is, it's an other. and they-
Okay, okay.
Oh, excuse me. Ms. Drake is behind me. I'll
You don't
I'll
have eyes
refer.
in the back of your head.
I
Like
apologize.
I'm saying,
My
yes,
lack of
there.
hair
Gotcha.
should.
And I didn't see because you were right there, so, but thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, they have that option to make sure it's not deducted, so.
Well,
when they
we
put
have
that
to
leave
put
in.
it in for them because I have to see that they actually have jury duties. So
Gotcha.
they can't just randomly put it in and it's actually for something else. So they have to submit that form and then we put it in for them.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Doctor.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions on these policies? Thank you, Dr. Costa. Next up, we have a donation of $9,928.38 from Martin's to Warren County Public Schools Food Service Department. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this? Dr. Costa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Martin's, and this is a great thing that, you know, when you go to Martin's and you get to go check out and ask if you want to round up, well, guess what? This is actually, there's proof in the pudding that when you round up, it does benefit our students. And this is one of the great things that, as you know, we have an outstanding nutritional program, and they are able to utilize these funds to help with before school and after school programs such as sports and band to help provide for them, because that's not covered under the requirements where they can utilize the funds. So these funds allow for that, and this is from Martin's. So anytime that you go shop at Martin's and you round up, it's really going somewhere. It's really going to help our students. So thank you all out there that are watching right now that rounded up. And, you know, we do bring this in front of the board for approval, where Martin's did donate $9,927.38. And we are asking for approval of that to be used for our food service department.
And Dr. Vince, I think this is our 3rd year. Is that correct, Ms. Brown?
you're correct on that,
Yeah, yeah. And this has really been a beneficial program for us from that initial, I think the initial was about $10,000 or $12,000, was that correct?
Yes. And I don't know, you know, ebbs and flows in the economy might affect those roundups, but I will say, every time we get the donation, and I put that back out there to the coaches, hey, just a reminder, and also the principals, because they have, you know, they have other activities and groups that don't qualify for federal snack funding, so this is the way they can still feed and, you know, give them a snack after school when their bellies are hungry before they go home for dinner. So it's been really good. And I just put it out there, let them know we can have a new donation. We've, you know, replenished our fund, and just send us any orders, you know, coaches or teachers, leaders of groups that need that. And we really do, if the activity will qualify for the federal funding, we'll use that instead, but this is good for those that don't qualify for that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you for reminding us what it's used for, too. Is there a motion on this?
I move that the Warren County School Board accepts the donation of $9,927.38 from Martin's to the Warren County Public Schools Food Service Department with gratitude.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Costa.
Thank you.
Next up, we have acceptance of new scholarships. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on that? Okay, Ms. Bragg.
The
following new scholarship opportunities for the class of 2025 are presented to the board for your approval. The Festival of Leaves Community Involvement Award will be awarded to 2 Warren County High School students based on their community involvement. The eligible recipients must have volunteered for community events sponsored by the Front Royal Independent Business Alliance. The Business Alliance is the benefactor of the 2 $500 scholarships, and again, that's for Warren County High School students. The David Strickler Scholarship will be awarded to a Blue Ridge technical student that plans to further their education in the trades. The scholarship will be in the amount of $500 or greater. Mr. Strickler was a long-serving and dedicated employee of the maintenance department with Warren County Public Schools. We're grateful to the benefactors for their kind contributions and support of our graduates.
I move that the Festival of Leaves Community Involvement Award and the David Strickler Scholarship be accepted with gratitude.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, Ms. Brett.
Our scholarship nights are next week at both Warren County High School and Skyline High School, so if you're interested in coming out and seeing all the money that we give away to our kids, it's a great opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving into our work session items this evening, we're going to be talking about a food and nutrition update from Ms. Brown.
Great. I did give you a black and white copy, but we have the color on the screen for you so that, because especially the last screen, you're going to want to see the color. So first of all, we just have a meals served update. So year to date, we've served over 1 million meals this school year, so that's really exciting news. We have great participation, and we're always continually trying new recipes and trying to make sure there's color on the line and try to make sure that the kids are visually happy with what they see, because we all eat with our eyes and we want to make sure that, you know, the food looks good and tastes good. So here, just as some example, this year, Warren County Middle School, that's where the picture's from. We did po' boy sandwiches, and that went really well. We've also done some different pesto flatbreads and just different flavors that kids haven't really seen in school. Today we had a pimento chicken sandwich at all the secondary schools. Actually,
I heard
went
all
really
about
well.
it.
It was good.
Yes.
We went and tried
Heard
it as
all
well.
about it.
Yes, so.
It's the daily question in my house.
What did you
was for
eat?
lunch today?
I ask my stepson that every day,
And
too.
today, he specifically was like, I said, what was it? He gave me the details of it.
Yay, okay, good. That makes me really happy. Here underneath, you do see a flatbread. Sometimes we serve them open so the kids can see what's inside, but depending on the volume of the school or the capacity on the line, they'll have to be folded. So this was the not pimento, that was today. This was the pesto chicken flatbread. No, this was the tzatziki sauce. So this was a shawarma. So we have tzatziki sauce homemade, which they homemade with the cucumbers and the Greek yogurt and everything, and then the tomato topping. And that one was hit or miss at the schools. It depended on the level of the school. Some little ones are very scared to try things like that. A lot of times we'll cut up a flatbread and just hand out samples on their tray because they do not want to try it. We have requested by teachers to have that entree back. So it will be back in May. I put it on the May menu because the teachers really, really liked it. And so of course we have our fail-proof corn dogs right there. Don't think we don't serve those types of things too. We definitely do. But so we're doing really well financially this year as well. That's the CEP program really does technically break even, maybe a little bit over our threshold, but that summer feeding that we do is what really keeps our fund healthy. So we're doing well financially as well. And we will do summer feeding again this year. We're going to change our curbside date to Fridays because we're going to have summer school at the same location. So we have to do our curbside date on Fridays where they don't have summer school students in the building. It's just like a technicality through VDOE. So if you want to go to the next slide. This is my amazing Sodexo dietitian named Alex Ryder. She actually lives in Colonial Beach, but she helps me a lot with those sodium and sugar and all of the things we were talking about in the wellness policy. She handles 4 of our Sodexo school districts in Virginia. So I go to her pretty much on a daily basis. She's also helping me with the federal audit right now. Just make sure we have the right recipes and we're showing the right ingredients that we're using so we can show VDOE that we are serving the students what we say we're serving. But she is now doing a tour. We're going to start at the elementary level to see how it goes. We started at AS Rhodes because it's our smallest school. We were a little nervous about starting this tour, but we sampled a watermelon salad. So it had feta cheese and it had cucumbers and watermelon and basil. And I thought the kids were going to hate it, but they really liked it. And we gave them a little, I don't know if you can see it, but right here. We gave them a chance to vote if they would like to see it on the menu. And we only had 3 frowny faces. So we were really happy with that. We thought it was a fun way to get feedback from the kids and make it feel like, something special. She comes to E. Wilson on May 7th. So we'll probably then start again at the beginning of next school year with the other 3 elementary schools. And she does live far away, so I'm trying to just bring her here once a month to get her in the schools. Another thing that we did, I didn't put in this presentation, we surveyed the high school students so far, and we're planning to survey the middle school next. We just handed out paper surveys. We find that the kids do not answer electronic surveys very well. So we tried electronic surveys for 2 school years. They just weren't great. And so we just did paper surveys for the high schools. We're going through them now to see, what do they want to see on the menu? What do they like? What do they not like? And we got a lot of really pretty pictures and hearts and thank yous and stuff, which was really nice. But we did get some good feedback on menu items they want to see. So I do like getting that from the kids, and I like to hear what they're interested in, because otherwise we're not going to really know. We're just kind of shooting off at the hip, like what do we feed them that they really want. We have gotten a lot of feedback that this year they're really into Chinese food, so especially at the secondary schools. So we're doing Chinese on Fridays every week. And they really love that. So that's some feedback we took from last year into this year. It's going really well. So if you want to skip to the next slide. Oh, we did have our future chefs. I don't know if you all talked about that at the last meeting. So thank you for judging. This is Camden Ferguson, and she won first place with her orange chicken tacos. They're super easy to make, and they were very tasty. So she walked away with a nice prize, and I did submit her recipe into the national competition. We had last year's national winner. I don't know if that would happen again. I was so excited over that. But we did submit it, so if anything further happens with Sodexo, I'll definitely let you know about that. And last but not least, over spring break, I had some painters come in and redo the entire bulkhead at Skyline High School. I actually had it painted 2 years ago. It was a dark green, and I just had them paint it again dark green because there was just a lot of chipping. But I didn't like it. I didn't think it looked bright in there. I thought that, it needed some life. And so I did a lot of research on bulkheads. Who has to do that? I don't know, me. And so we painted the bottom and the back white, and then we painted the front the canary gold, or whatever the color, I'm not exactly sure the name of the color, the goldenrod. So we matched the serving line at the bottom. It just looks really, really nice, brightens the space up. And we hung up some new signs. We also ordered this really cool sign up here from Hannah Signs in town. Hannah Signs, is that correct? Shay Parker? Yes, okay. And he made that sign for us. So it's really pretty. We just had a blank wall there. It looks really nice. And we have a little bit of LED out on this one line, but it just came. So I'm going to replace that probably tomorrow. So we have the nice LEDs underneath. The kids were really excited when they came back from spring break and saw that yellow. So I was there rehanging all the signs and everything. But it really looks super nice. If you get a chance to go by Skyline High School and have a look at it, it looks really pretty. So I think that's it for me. We're doing great staffing-wise this year. We haven't been short-staffed. I mean, we've had a little tiny bit of turnover just with some part-time positions, but we've had a wonderful year. The staff seem really, really happy, and we have great teams at every school. We work through our issues. We had a Facebook issue a couple weeks ago, but we worked through that. We're working with the team, and everybody's taken the feedback really well and constructive criticism that I had from, the Facebook posting. And, I don't comment, but I went through every single comment and we addressed every single thing as a team. And we really take that stuff seriously. We don't want to see that. We want to have a good name for school food service because we try really hard to make these foods very good for our school district. So I think that's it. Any questions for me?
Are you able to meet most people's food allergies, whatever, there's a lot of them?
Yes. A lot of times people do choose to pack. They really do. I mean, parents like to have control of that.
Yeah.
But yes, when a parent reaches out to us, we do everything we can to work with the allergy that the child has. Thankfully, we don't have a ton here, but we do work around their allergies as best as we can. I haven't had a parent that's reached out to me that we weren't able to find a solution for their child.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
And that's typically one of those, that could be a 504 accommodation.
correct.
So we're required to make the accommodation.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say firsthand, when we did the COVID
Yes.
food, my children are gluten-free, and they did such a great job of
Yeah, even in the
accommodating.
summer, we will still accommodate. So we have a couple peanut-free bags. We had that actually for Dr. Funk as well when her other son was here. But we do have a couple peanut-free and a couple gluten-free for summer feeding even as well. We just separate those bags and we mark them and we make sure that they're available when that parent, or guardian comes through the pickup line. So, thank you.
And I just wanted to say thank you for your responsiveness when I reached out about
Yes.
the Facebook. You were on top of that, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, and my district manager came in because I don't like stuff like that. Really does. I've been doing this for 16 years, but it hurts my feelings for them and also for myself when I see that and I know how hard they're working. And as you said, not every kitchen's perfect, and we're feeding hundreds of kids every 15 minutes. They're coming through in lines of. I don't think sometimes people realize the volume and how crazy it can get, and they really are just humans too. So we just want to make sure that they get the training they need. So my district manager came in, we did a micro in-service with the team, and we just made them feel supported, like we're here, what can we do for you, is there something we can make better for you, I just think sometimes there's a little hiccup there anyway, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you're working. So yeah, thank you.
I wanted to say too that I appreciate what you were saying about the samples that you're giving kids, because my children would never try a pimento chicken sandwich. Certainly
Right.
not as their main meal, because what if I don't like it? Then
Yeah.
I'm not eating today.
True.
I think my daughter's had the same meal every day at school for like the last 3 years. But I appreciate that you're giving those chances for them to try new foods. And as the parent of picky eaters, a lot of times they won't try stuff at home because they don't have to. But if they're at school and they're seeing their peers like it,
Yeah, it's
and
really
all the other
good.
kids are like, I love the whatever,
Yes.
then they're going to try that. And especially if they have a chance to try it like in low stakes, where I know I still have my food that I feel comfortable with, and I
Right.
can try a little bit of this other one and see how it goes.
Yeah.
That's great, and it's so helpful, and it's really beyond what you need to do.
Right.
It's not what's required of you, but it's really, I think, great for the kids. I really appreciate it as a parent, so I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Next up this evening, we have the FY 25-26 Special Education Annual Plan. Is there anyone who would like to, I was back on the action item still. About to.
Yeah, we're still in work session.
Oh, I was
We moved
I
to
was
work
going
session.
back in time.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to present to you this evening our Special Education Annual Plan for 2025, 2026. I'm going to try and see if we can, still no dice, sorry, I tried. So the Special Education Annual Plan, this is our Part B flow-through. It's an application for federal grant funding. This is a component of our overall responsibility of the Virginia Department of Education. It's to ensure that that there is compliant local implementation of the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And the division's annual, the annual December 1 child count of students with disabilities impacts that total award amount and is used heavily in the calculation of the annual awards. And that funding is contingent upon the final approval and those awarded amounts. So as we go through the proposed plan this evening, you'll see some things are anticipated on funding that will be given. So it is contingent upon that final approval. And the VDOE may require local adjustments based on the final awards. And that flow through funding originates in the federal government. It flows through the Virginia Department of Education and then locally to our local education agency, and we are the LEA. You'll hear that referred to as the LEA. And upon approval of this plan by this board, our school board, the superintendent will certify. There is a section that he will have to sign certifying quite a large amount of things. And basically, in summary, that we are providing FAPE. We're providing a free and appropriate public education. We're maintaining individualized education programs, or IEPs. We're educating students to the maximum extent possible with their non-disabled peers. We're developing policies and procedures that prevent the over-identification of individuals with disabilities, the under-identification of individuals with disabilities, as well as disproportionate representation by race or ethnicity of students with disabilities. So I included just some factual data based on our local information, our population, our students with disabilities, and the disability categories they represent, because all of those things go into the creation of the annual plan. So the next few slides are for that purpose. This details the total WCPS enrollment. The dark blue line is our total enrollment, and the lighter blue line at the bottom represents the students with disabilities in Warren County Public Schools. And you will see over the last several years from 2019 to the present, we've hovered pretty steadily around the 13% mark. And digging a little bit deeper, further disaggregating that data, we currently have 654 students with disabilities, and these are the disability categories that those students represent. So you can see that the most frequently occurring categories in Warren County Public Schools at present is other health impairment, autism, and specific learning disability. But you'll also see the other disabilities that are represented there, and this is, again, according to our December 1 count of students with disabilities in Warren County Public Schools. I also wanted to take a moment and just talk about the staffing that is reflected in special education. It consists of a wide range of professionals, and as you can see, as you might suspect, the largest group represents our K through 12 special education teachers, our instructional assistants for special education K through 12, and as well as our pre-K early childhood special education teachers and our preschool special education instructional assistants. That represents the largest group of special education staffing. And then the next grouping that you'll see below that, sorry, Sarah, you can go back to that, is our related service professionals. So our speech language pathologists, we have 6 speech SLPs in the division, 3 occupational therapists, we have 1 physical therapist. So those are our related service professionals. Now, that represents a really small number of people, but they do a huge job. They're seeing lots and lots of students across our entire division. We also have 3 school psychologists, 2 school social workers, 2 administrators, 5 specialized coordinators. So those would be things like our transition coordinator, our McKinney-Vento liaison, our BCBA coordinator, specialized programs coordinator, and who did I miss? Oh, Child Find and pre-K coordinator. So those are our very specialized individual areas that all make up that piece of that puzzle. And then lastly, we have 5 contracted staff members and 3 administrative assistants at the division level. And each of those individuals also supports a very specific function. One administrative assistant supports funding and grant management. One supports Medicaid billing and reimbursement, as well as supporting McKinney-Vento. And one supports eligibility and all of the paperwork and documentation that goes along with that special education process.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
So I know on the staffing and the contracted staff, would it be safe to assume, because we do have students that have a hearing impairment or visual impairment?
Yes, ma'am.
Would it be safe to assume that some of those contracted staff are the specialists that service those students?
Yes, ma'am. So those are very unique services that are to be provided and would not necessarily represent a full-time Warren County Public Schools position. So those 5 contracted positions, we have 2 teachers of the visually impaired remote, 1 educational interpreter sub for when our interpreter is out. That's a very specialized position with sign language interpretation. 1 orientation and mobility specialist, and then 1 assistive technology specialist, which would be remote as well.
Could I ask a question too?
Certainly.
On the previous page, the 654 students with disabilities, is that including 504s and the IEPs, or?
No, ma'am. This is only for students with disabilities under IDEA, which would, yeah, that represents that number. Also, just a snapshot of what special education funding looks like. You'll see a blend of local, state, and federal dollars, and you'll see that the largest chunk of funding for special education, with just under 55% is federal funding and around 34% state funding, and then just around 11% with local funding. So when we get into the actual annual plan, there are 5 components, and this is issued and developed in accordance with state and federal regulations. We serve students with disabilities ages 2 to 22 inclusive, and consists of these 5 components. So the Title 6B grant funds, Section 619 talks about preschool students with disabilities. Section 611 talks about school-age students with disabilities, that's K through age 22 inclusive. The third component is our regional RSW jail educator. We have a program in our jail for individuals with disabilities. The proportionate set aside, and we'll talk, I'll go into each of these, and then maintenance of effort. So those are the 5 components. So the Title 6B the 619 is our preschool students. So these are students who have been identified as having a disability. These funds will be utilized for a portion. It's a rather small amount, but it funds one portion of one early childhood special education teacher's salary. So you can see from 24-25 to 25-26. This past year, we funded 1 ECSC teacher as well as a portion of an instructional assistant. We're moving to make that just a little bit cleaner with reporting purposes for the state we're going to be funding a portion of 1 early childhood special education teacher. But that covers that $31,029.05. So let's move on to the 611, which is our school age special education. And these are for students in grades K through age 22 inclusive. So this also, it's all entirely salaries. So all of our Part B funds, they only fund salaries. There are no goods, it's just salaries and benefits. So our federal funds are funding the educators, the people who are working with the students with disabilities. So right now we maintain a list of special educators who this grant funds. And right now that's funding 21 special education teachers. It covers their salary and benefits. And we anticipate maintaining the staffing and the reporting of around 21 teachers, again, covered in this grant for this upcoming school year. And next is our RSW Regional Jail Education Program. So as I had mentioned earlier, we do have one, right now we have a full-time jail educator at RSW. She has an office that's located within RSW. She is an employee of WCPS. She falls under special services. She provides services to individuals who are incarcerated, who are between the ages of 18 and 22 inclusive, who have a disability, who elect to participate in this. So these are students, these are young adults who have not graduated from high school with a standard diploma. So they could have earned, an applied studies diploma. They could not have finished high school. So it allows us to capture some students who were receiving services and are now incarcerated, and they can opt into receiving these supports and services. What we have found out, due to, this is a good thing, but due to decreasing numbers of individuals with disabilities that are incarcerated, we don't have enough to fund an entire teacher for next school year. So our funding right now actually went through March. So our funding, our current grant, we're in what they kind of described as like a gentleman's handshake. Their fiscal year and our fiscal years don't align. So from March of 2025 until our fiscal year rolls over in July, we're under that gentleman's handshake. The funding continues. And then when our fiscal year begins, we are going with the new level of funding. And this is anticipated. We haven't officially received this word yet, but I've had many conversations with the individuals responsible for the jail education grant. So we are going to be receiving 1/2 of the funding for a jail educator. So we've kind of broken out by personnel, by benefits. We still have budgeted in for some instructional materials and equipment, as well as travel and professional development for that individual. As I said, it's a very unique and very specialized teacher. I can't provide that professional development. So we look for opportunities for that individual to go to stay current and receiving their professional development. You have seen the interagency agreement between Warren County Public Schools and RSW. That was recently updated in March at a board meeting. So that is linked there and I believe was attached in board docs as well. Okay, next is proportionate set aside, and the proportionate share calculation is the amount that each LEA must spend during the grant period on the provision of special education and related services for students with disabilities who are unilaterally parentally placed in private schools or students who are identified during child find. So those PSA funds are used for vision services, they're used for speech and language services, as well as hearing services. These are services that can be provided in a standalone model, meaning that they don't need to be provided as part of an educational model. A student can come in and just receive speech therapy. They can come in and just receive hearing services as well as vision services. These are also services that are frequently sought out in our community, and they're not really readily available. So this is a service that we work in conjunction with our community to be able to provide that. So right now there are 733 eligible students with disabilities within our LEA. There are 7 parentally placed eligible students with disabilities in private schools. There are 30 parentally placed eligible students with disabilities who are currently not receiving services. Variety of reasons, but the parent has opted not to receive those services. And then there are a total of 770 eligible children in the LEA. And then the state breaks it down by an approximate amount per student that we plan should these individuals with disabilities who are parentally placed require or need those services, that we have that funding set aside to be able to provide that. At the end of that grant period, if those funds are remaining, those funds are released back to us in the LEA, and we are able to expend those funds. But those are set aside and are earmarked for providing those services. Okay. And the last component of the plan is called maintenance of effort. And this is a regulation that requires school divisions to spend at least the same amount of local or local plus state dollars for a current school year on the delivery of special education and related services as were spent in the previous year during the from the same source during the previous year. So if you look under the total, under local and then local plus state, you'll see the 24-25 data and then the proposed, the anticipated above that for the local and then the local plus the state and then broken down by per capita. And lastly, I just want to highlight the timeline for this plan. This evening, obviously presenting in a work session for discussion here for a first look with our board. I will be presenting and discussing this annual plan with our SEAC committee this coming Monday, April 28th. We'll make revisions as necessary, as identified if we need to make some revisions. I will be coming back on May the 7th and asking the school board to approve this annual plan for submission. It will require Dr. Ballinger's signature and certification, and I am required to submit this to the VDOE no later than Friday, May the 9th. So again, I'll be back on May the 7th to ask for your approval. This annual plan application, the total plan really represents a total of $1,510,011.74. And the disbursement of those federal funds appropriated for special education is contingent upon the approval of this annual plan. So that kind of gives us the why of why we create the annual plan and why we ask for your approval. Are there any questions that I can answer for you right now?
Does this plan get sent out to all the parents of children involved in the special education plan for them to look at?
It does not get sent out widely in that respect. It's made available to parents with disabilities through our SEAC committee, which I'll put in a plug. We would love to have more of our parents of students with disabilities participate in our local SEAC. The schedule for those meetings are on our WCPS Special Services webpage. We meet again on Monday, the 28th is our next meeting. We would love to have more individuals come, and it is advertised that will be where it will be discussed, and then made widely available through public record and our discussion here this evening.
And so they can come to that meeting?
Oh, yes,
even if
ma'am,
they're not
absolutely.
a member?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We would welcome, more participation in the SEAC. We have a small but very active group, but we would love to see that group grow.
Can you just state the time and place of that? Give
Yes.
a little bit more detail? 'Cause
It
I know you
is-
said it's on the website, but.
It is on the
since you're here.
website, and I don't have my calendar here with me, but it is Monday. It's here. It's right here in this room. I believe it's at 7, but I have to double check. I can grab my calendar real quick. The SEAC meeting is Monday, the 28th at 6 p.m., right here in this meeting place here at the 15th Street building in Diversified Minds. Can I answer any questions for you about the plan, or is there anything that you would like to see before I present it to you next for approval?
I'd like to just say thank you very much. You took a very complex problem and explained it that even I could understand, so thank you very much.
It helped me as well. I'm newish to the role, but really digging into where the funds come from, why they come through, and how they come to us has helped me as well in really understanding why this plan is important and how it benefits our students here locally.
It definitely came out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Have you heard any updates yet from the Department of Education? I know Mrs. McMahon's staff was saying that parents should not be worried. This funding is not going away. It's going to be streamlined. It's going to probably be even more plentiful. So have you heard any type of?
Nothing has reached us yet.
Okay.
I am, a member of several local groups and state groups. It's being discussed very regularly, but nothing I'm not alarmed about anything. There's nothing that's come down at this point. We are continuing forward, providing great services for students with disabilities.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up this evening, we have budget discussion. Dr. Ballinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first document that I would like to look at, we have a couple things on here, and just kind of get this one out of the way, but it is the retention bonus. So if we could pull that one up, it's just a little screenshot of a couple of options. When looking at the retention bonus, we all know that in the proposed budgets that they were offering funds for schools to utilize and pay a bonus this year and or possibly next year, but we think as we look more, it looks like it's going to be this year. We kind of want to get ahead of that because we also need to plan for at the next meeting to ask the board to ask for an increase of appropriation, because if this is passed, then the funds will be distributed to the county for the school boards, and so we want to go ahead and get some of those things rolling. But we came up with two options, and we wanted to present those options to the board to ponder, and then kind of see what direction you know, as a board, you kind of want to go. Scenario one, and we know that our cut is $536,129. That's what our calc template, or I guess it's our planning template now they call it, not the calc template. They're the same thing, but that's the number that they have. And now in there, it does not say it requires a match. So they put a little asterisk, and then down there at the bottom you can read, and it tells you what it's for on the little calc template. And so even though they're saying $1,000 bonus in the state budget and this and that, that's only for SOQ positions. So they're only funding us on the number of SOQ positions. And if you remember, we have more positions than SOQ funded. So that means we have to do something about finding or coming up with a solution. And so when looking at this, we said, okay, what if we use this as a retention bonus, and we would pay $750 per person that signs their contract to come back with us. They'd receive those funds at the end of June, but it would be if they signed their contract and they came back. The second option would be, okay, we just take our number of 536,129 and divide it by the number of FTE people that we have, and that would just be that everybody would get basically a bonus of $690. That would include those that are resigning or retiring or leaving to go somewhere else, but everybody who worked this year would get a bonus of $690. We looked at some other options to say, okay, if you started with this in August, and then if you got the full amount, if you came in January, you got a different amount. We looked at quarters, and we had about 4 options that we were kind of pondering in cabinet and trying to discuss, and we landed on these 2. And we really liked using it as a retention bonus. The one thing that we did not like was, those that are retiring. Of course they're retiring, but they've put forth a lot of time and effort into Warren County Public Schools. They wouldn't receive this because they're not signing a contract. So that would be the only downside to that. Those that are leaving us to go to another county, they're leaving us. So we just kind of wanted to discuss these 2 scenarios with you, kind of get your guidance at this point in time, and just kind of see which direction the board kind of feels we need to go.
For scenario 1, did you just subtracted out who is retiring right now, and did you just assume everybody else is signing back on?
So Ms. Drake, you want to come up and talk about because Ms. Drake went through and looked at everybody trying to figure out retirees, things that she's already done, and just numbers there.
Yeah, so these numbers actually include who we know right now is retiring, or resigning with us, so that these are reflective of the true 776 current FTEs we have. Obviously, if we hire somebody new, that would be adjusted. Right now, we do have 11 retiree letters and 8 resignation letters. So depending on which option we choose, or what direction that looks like, if who gets it or who doesn't, those are the current numbers that we have right now for that. But these include everybody currently employed with us, not future hires or those leaving.
The main thing with both these options is it doesn't require a local match. You know, we were trying to save some money, cut some things to try to get together a match. But if we do it in this manner, then we don't have to have that match.
Did you consider, if we're using it as the retention bonus, you mentioned the downside is the retirees, could we consider giving like maybe a smaller amount to the retirees so that they're not getting nothing, like maybe $250? You know, so it's still
We could do that. That's why we're having the discussion with the board. I mean, if that is, you know, the will of the board, then yes. I mean, and that was our concern in our conversation in cabinet was, you know, for people that have been with us for 30 plus years or 25 years, and they're deciding to retire, you know, but we also know that's part of life too. And so, but we wanted to present that to the board, and that's why I mentioned that, so that we could have that discussion and see kind of which direction the board would like to go. And I'm fine either way. We would just have to look at it and modify it, so.
Yeah, I'd lean more towards the retention plus the retirees.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to make sure we include the retirees because you know, that's an important milestone. And so that would be maybe a variation of the numbers of scenario 1, correct? That would be retention and retirees?
Yes, ma'am, and that's the thing, and we can look at that, and you know, if we want to do 250 or you want to do 500, I mean, we can look at those numbers and see what that cost would be.
I'd be, yeah, I would agree. I like the retention
Or if the board wants to
retirees.
give them the full 750 like everybody else. I mean, it's the will of the board, whatever the board wants to do. I mean, we just wanted to bring it up because we had that discussion, and that was kind of a hump that we had trouble getting over with the retention bonus with our retirees, because they did provide a service to us, and a lot of them for a very, very, very long time. And so just also recognizing them, but however you guys settle on what you're saying, okay, as far as an amount, we're fine to move forward with, and we would just look at that.
And depending on how the numbers end up, maybe we would be able to, I mean, depending on how many people leave and are not going to be taking this, maybe we'd be able to pay them $750 and still not use local funds. I mean, part of it depends on where we end up with the numbers.
Because you said it's not going out until, the retention bonus itself wouldn't be until the end of June.
Correct.
So you'd know who's signing on by then.
So this kind of puts us in a dilemma. You know, at our budget committee meeting on Monday, and talking with Dr. Daly, the county is not, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, and Dr. Funk, you and Mr. McFadden, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what we were told is that they're not going to advertise a budget until probably the first part of June. And we have to issue contracts because I think it's June 15th.
Yes.
That we would like to have our employees have their contract signed and back to us. But we may not have, you know, as far as looking at where we're at with the budget for staff to, and so then they may hold off till June 15th, and we're rushing to try to pay that June payment. But we can actually pay it probably in July, but could we, as far as issue it back? I mean, this will be a question for Rob, because we don't want to get caught up in paying something out 1 month, and then, you know, can we accrue that back to the previous month? You know, that's, I'll leave Rob to answer that one.
Yeah,
It'd be kinda
the
hard.
wording I've seen on the state, and the state, to my knowledge, doesn't have a budget, so it's not really approved yet. is that they would disperse it to the schools by June 1st. I think the expectation is that we would pay it out in this fiscal year, and with that, if the revenue is received in this year, the expense ought
Has
to
to
be,
be
yeah.
this year.
Now, maybe we could accrue it back to the year that the money was received in. So, you probably could pay it in July if you, and accrue the expense back into the year when the revenue was received.
But you can see we're hitting a couple of brick walls there when it comes to budget, contracts, payout for a retention bonus. All in the month of June is going to be a tight timeline for things of that time.
What is the 45,871 red? What is it part of it? What
That
does
would be
mean?
the local funding
Yeah.
needed if we did 750 for all current 776 FTEs.
We need more money.
The state funding would be short by that
By
amount, so we'd
45.
have to.
And we were originally at we were figuring the 1,000 at 250,000, I think is what we
Yeah.
were figuring, correct, Rob?
Originally, yes.
So we've dropped that down from 250 down to 45,000, which is more manageable right now than where we were at that $250,000 mark.
You chose 750 just because that's what brought you as close as you could get.
That was getting us closer to, because this is, the 750 will also be taxed. And typically that's taxed at a higher rate because bonuses are taxed at 31%.
Oh, it's federal 22, 5.75 for state, and 7.65 for FICA. So it's in a low 30% range. So it takes a big chunk of it. It's sad.
Yeah, because it is a bonus. So we wanted to try to keep that number as high as we can. It's not the 1,000, but so that's why we said, okay, now if the board wants us to try to do a little more, I mean, it's, the higher that number ticks up, the more it takes local.
If we add retirees back into that, it'll increase it.
Right.
A little bit as it is.
But that also is, we could have some resignations coming in over the next, that would not get this. That would just be a replacement.
And this does include all 776. This includes retirees and like everybody. So my count is added in here. This is not excluding them.
So
Okay,
we're
so
already
that
Yeah,
includes-
sorry, this is all 776 employees. We use the same number. I did not subtract out the current retirees or the resignations. So that will actually drop.
So that could drop that
If-
45,000.
Right, depending on if you say retirees get it, but, if you resign, you don't. So that would go down. Hopefully not, actually, I mean, I would actually like to keep the employees.
Yeah, we would like to see less
Right.
resignations. We would like to pay that out, but.
Right.
But they're already included. Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood
Yes,
you.
no, sorry, I heard you say that and wanted to just, because we didn't know which direction, so we just wanted to stick with the current. And again, that could, also adjust depending if we have any new hires, within the next few months as well, so.
Are any of these retirees considering being subs at all? If they
We
are,
offer it.
that would certainly,
Yeah.
I would think, qualify them for the full
Yeah.
retention bonus.
Yeah, the top two tenured employees at Warren County Public Schools, one has 39 years of service as retiring. I don't know if they want to do that, but that to me, I was like, but we always say, please, go be a sub if you just want to still stay connected and stuff like that, yes. But I don't know if those two, they might just be done.
A lot of years.
It is, yeah.
So as far as when looking at this, with the retirees, what would the board like to do as far as, remember, it's getting taxed at that higher rate too, so.
I mean, if that already includes the retirees, then I would say keep it
Let's
at
do
the
it.
750.
So keep, for everyone who stays and for the retirees, keep the same rate. That's what I'm thinking.
That would be my preference.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
It looks like we could afford it.
Okay.
people.
All right,
And if
so-
they're already
$200.
Yeah.
Right.
It's- yes.
and keep it as a retention bonus. I think that makes the most
Yeah,
sense.
and we want to, do that as retention. Yeah. Okay.
And-
All right, so we're sticking with scenario one, but we'll include the retirees
Okay.
to get the full 750.
Yep. And are we putting a deadline on when they have to submit their contract in?
So
Or
that'll be
pending
on
when
the
they go
15th,
out?
because we
Okay.
would have to,
Yeah, I think you definitely should need to have a deadline.
Right.
because
Well,
we had
that's kinda
talked about
that-
this, Rob and I had already talked about how can we make sure that, if we pay that and then somebody resigns or something of that nature, we didn't want to pay it too early because we wanted to make
Right.
sure that we do have that security of being locked in before that payout it occurs.
Yeah, I think if someone signs a contract, they still have up to June 15th to back out of it, so to speak, I
They
think.
get 2 weeks after they submit their formal letter for
Okay.
our, yeah, so.
So, and then the other thing, thinking about if we paid it out in July, I think we'd be fine because really the cost is incurred on June 15th. That's when, if someone's turned it in, they've qualified for it, and that's when the cost is incurred. So even though we pay it in July, it would get accrued back to June in the same fiscal year that the revenue has been
Okay.
promised to come in, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll keep it at 750 and we'll include retirees. All right. Thank you, Ms. Drake. All right, so next document we're going to look at, and I do want to apologize that I thought it was on here. We had it on the work session with the budget committee, and did not see that it was added to this agenda. So I did ask Mr. Ballantyne to add that, and he did do that earlier today. And that is let me
I
find
called it the budget with various percentage
Yes.
increases. I don't know if that's a good name for it, but
Yep. So if we can pull that document up. And this document comes from, early, the Board of Supervisors had requested, and Dr. Dudley sent an email that they were interested in seeing what a 1%, and 2%, 5% would look like and what we'd be able to get with our 1%, 2%, 5%. So we looked at this, and this is all going off of going back to being level funded. So if we go back to being level funded, remember, there are things that we lose, but there are some things that we retain. So in the level funding, in that number, we still get to keep the held positions and repurposed positions, okay? But we lose everything else, basically. So we lose the non-labor budget is level funded. That's at schools, that's at departments, everything is level funded to what it is currently. You lose your added positions, you lose all of your student support coaches, you lose, you lose being able to put the textbook money in a textbook fund, that's putting it back in. And then the big kicker in this one is when you go level funding, is the full increase of insurance goes on the employee. So that means they carry the full brunt of that at that in that level funding scenario. So if you go to, if you remember going to the, if you want to pull up the superintendent's proposed budget and you go to that second to the last page, it outlines everything that is removed. So that is on slide 52. And you can, it gives that narrative down there. That's also taking teachers back from a 3% plus a step, that moves them back to a 3% inclusive. We were trying to make some adjustments for different pay grades, grade 6, 24, 18, 35, 42. We were doing some revisions there. That's wiping them out. We're not doing the revisions. They go to the same scale, but they get a 3% inclusive of step. So that means everybody in our scales get a 3% inclusive of step. So there are no revisions. There's no 3% plus step, so you're taking that out of the teacher side. And I think that hit everything, correct, Mr. Ballantyne? All right, Mr. Ballantyne, would you go ahead and take over and kind of finish off on this sheet that we were initially looking at here?
Okay,
Looking
well, if we go
percentages.
back to that sheet that's shown up on the overhead, even when we do the things that Dr. Ballinger just talked about, removed all those things, we still are $56,642 below balancing the budget. So either we would have to find that much revenue additional somewhere or reduce our expenditures by that amount just to have a balanced budget. That said, one of the things that has been a priority, I think, through the whole budget process is the nursing coordinator. So that's shown there, the cost of that, and you say, well, how can that save us money by hiring an additional position? Well, it really doesn't, but what we were looking at doing is, Dr. Ballinger mentioned that the held positions were all still included in the budget up there. One of those is a position at E. Wilson Morrison, and correct me if I describe this incorrectly. That position, in consultation with the principal, maybe not ideal, but they can get by without that position. So it
For
would
one
be
more year.
for one more year. So,
So it's a
we'll kick
so
that
it becomes a
can.
repurpose. Okay, so that's what this becomes. It's a repurpose. So if you remember that repurpose page, and we were doing the reading specialist for some other positions, this is repurposing that teaching position, basically, so we're doing a repurpose here.
One of the other position enhancements we looked at was increasing the dean at Diversified Minds to a principal's position. So taking that savings but not doing it, coupling it with the position at E. Wilson, it actually saves us a little bit of money. So when you do that, that takes the cumulative amount of money needed to balance the budget down from the 56,642 that I said we were out of balance. It takes it down to 36,753. So then a priority that we've heard about from many, many sources is the increase in the health insurance for our employees. If we increase the employer's share by 3%, not the 10.1 that it actually is across the board, that would cost an additional $229,776. That would require an additional cumulative amount of $266,529. If we were to take it from that 3% to 10% and share the burden equally between the employee and the employer, that would add an additional $488,760. That cumulative effect is $755,289. So stopping there, that would require a 2.64% increase in local funding to be able to do those things from item number 7 and above. If we were to get a 2% increase in our local funding, that gives us $573,000. So we would be able to do the nursing coordinator no matter what, because the way it's described would save us money. And if we got a 1%, we would have $286,500. So we'd be able to, with either of those, do something for health insurance and also add the nursing coordinator, not a whole lot more. The next item, and I should have a VII, 3 I's there for number 8, would be retaining 1 bachelor level student support coach. That would add $67,727. And the next part of that process would be to include 14 student support instructional assistants. That would add another $74,319, which would take the total increase to $1,297,335, or 4.53% in the county funding.
And Mr. Valentine, if I could jump in here real quick. So as I provided an update a couple weeks ago to the board before break, and looking at our student support coaches from a budget committee meeting that we had with the school board, that we were going to move away from the bachelor level, keep one bachelor level here at Diversified Minds to run our Reflections program, but also at the same time then try to repurpose those, because you have the 7 IAs and you would have the 7, you would have had the 7 bachelor, but we will go ahead and do away with those, and we will actually create 7. Then the thing is to create 7 IAs. So that would give them still 2 people at the schools to be able to help with reading remediation. And by making that change, the original cost for the 8 bachelor and 7 instructional assistants was $765,000. So by turning that into keeping 1 bachelor and then creating 7 IAs and letting the other 7 bachelors go, that saved us, that's a savings of about $250,000. And so that's why we're, looking at that to try to make sure that we can still provide services if the funding is there. If we need to, we could even cut that back to 1 instructional assistant to try to provide some services. But we felt that this was a good solution. We did talk about that at the budget committee, with the budget committee, and we moved forward with that. And so that is why you're seeing that difference in 14 IAs and only 1 bachelor level. So I did want to put that out, that, in this scenario and what we would be planning on right now is that all of our current bachelor level instructional, or our coaches, student support coaches, would not be retained for next year.
Would they be able to go in for the IA positions if they were willing to take a pay cut? Or-
They could, yes. And we talked about maybe even working with them because they all have a bachelor, and trying to get them certified if they want to become a teacher, because they've been working with us for 3 or 4 years. How can we find support and get them in positions to stay with it? Because, they're valuable. We've put a lot of training into them. If they wanted to take one of those IA positions, then yes, they would have to take a pay cut.
So we'll try to
do
retain
that.
them, but those positions wouldn't be there, basically.
Correct,
If
yes.
we could keep them somehow, we would want to.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Valentine. I just wanted to make
that's
sure
good.
we were clear on that, so that you know what we're doing with the 14 IAs and only the 1 bachelor, because that person would be over here running the Reflections program. And remember, the Reflections program is when a student is suspended at one of our secondary schools, they come over here. And so they do all of their work over here at Diversified Minds during that time. And we can provide some other supports if needed through other programming and counseling and things of that nature. All right, Mr. Valentine.
The next item on the list is number 10, was the position enhancements. That would be the putting a secretary, a part-time secretary, on the actual scale where they belong on an hourly basis, as opposed to paying a rate that was established many years ago and really hasn't been increased over time. It's also adjusting one of the coordinators to actually give them the true coordinator's stipend.
To match what other coordinators are getting.
Right. And the other one is the...
Moving a specialist to a technician.
To the,
Yes.
technician scale.
Technician scale.
Yes. Non-labor, custodial, we've talked about the fact that our custodial contract is out for bid this year, and that we anticipated a 5% increase. I'm hearing word that maybe at this point that may be optimistic even in our...
Dr. Costner back there.
I think he's ignoring us.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to look at us, but we're hearing that number's a little bit higher than the 5% that we projected.
We also talked about for $80,282, allocating non-labor to the schools on a per pupil basis to try to get that back to a funding formula that's sustainable for the future and has not been increased by any significant amount at all for many years. The substitute budget, we've talked about that. We feel that it's going to take another $100,000 really to realistically fund it at the level that we're currently experiencing it. And as Dr. Ballinger mentioned a little earlier, the $426,973 transferred to the textbook fund so we can start buying textbooks. If we did all those things, that would take a 7.17% increase in our county appropriation. So that's sort of where we're at.
And so that's where you see in bold, as Dr. Daly requested, to look at what would a 1% give us. If you look at that column to the right, you can see where 1% sets, where 2% sets, where the 5% sets, and then everything above that 5% would be able to be included, and then we're at 7%. I just threw the 7% in there. I know our total increase this year, we were asking for, I think it was about 14.2%. Is that correct, Mr. Ballantyne? I believe that's what it was originally.
Yes.
Yeah. And so just looking at it from those perspectives. So we did provide that information. And so when looking at it and working through with the Executive Budget Committee, again, we felt that insurance we haven't talked a lot about because, in the original budget it was 10%, we were going to share the cost, 10%, 10%. But when you look at that scenario of level funding, that shifts everything to our staff members. And so at this point in time, I would like to ask Ms. Drake to come up to the podium, and she's going to go through our fun little diagram of insurance and run through some scenarios for you. It's going to be that.
So are these in order of priority? Is that what this is? This sheet we just finished before we switch sheets, so this is prioritized? Is that
Yes, so that's kind of the priority is to try to take care of the insurance and then.
Oh, the scenarios, so it'll say 3 or 7%.
Well, you want to go through that big one first?
First, I can, yes. Yes, Sarah, you were right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go through that one first.
All right.
That is called the.
Benefit scenarios.
I have some extra printed copies.
25,
Anybody want
26
one?
benefit scenarios.
That'd be helpful.
No, I've been looking at it.
That's the,
Mary
yes, the
District doesn't
vision,
have-
but benefit scenarios.
Yeah,
You have extra
I do.
copies? And I probably have an extra copy.
If I have an extra conflict, they're probably microscopic, so
Yeah, you gotta
I'll
print
stick
it.
with the one that I can zoom in on.
Well,
Sure.
We have plenty of copies.
and maybe, I don't know if we have anybody in the audience, do we have copies for them since it's
Oh, that
public?
table's not labeled benefit scenarios.
That's what it's labeled. Well,
Employee and employer
FY
cost
25,
share
26.
analysis, is this?
This is the benefit scenarios one, this thing.
This is the same thing. Yeah, no, that's the same thing.
All right, so I'll first explain the Excel sheet. It's lovely and color-coded, kind of keep my eyes straight as you're looking at this on the computer. So the very top column up here, the top columns up here are the current enrollments that we have on our comprehensive medical, dental, vision, it's all one plan that we have. Excuse me. So we have 585 employees, and it's broken down between our high deductible plan, our Key Advantage 1000, and our Key Advantage 250 plan. The second row or columns down the total rate. So this is the actual cost of benefits. So this is, if, as an employee only, for an example, on our high deductible plan, it is $624 for that specific plan. The second column down is the Warren County Public School cost. So in the gray column, this is currently what we in Warren County Public Schools put towards benefits. And then the last column down is the employee portion. So that's just kind of the breakdown, and then as you kind of move to the right, those are going to be the different scenarios. So that entire gray column is this current fiscal year. I think it's important to note that open enrollment is in October. These numbers could always change pending, a birth of a baby, or maybe a divorce, or somebody's child turned 26 and they drop, or they choose to go on somebody else's plan. So these numbers will always be fluid, but this is just the active participants we have right now. We do offer a preventative plan. There are only 6 employees enrolled in our preventative plan. I do not have any of them on here. It's just a very small number, just not relevant to add an entire another page, just trying to keep benefits as simple as possible, if that's ever possible. So if you look at kind of that peach column, again, taking our current renewal, our enrollment, on what we have now, if Warren County Public Schools, that second column down, we got a 10.1% increase. So if you take the column or the numbers in the gray and you times it by 10.1, those are our new rate benefits. These are what we have to pay for each plan for each employee that is enrolled in them. Now, the next column down, I have like Warren County Public Schools costs at 10%. 7%, 5%, right? So you just kind of move over for each one on our contributions. It's not that we are taking the full 10%, it's the employer portion of 10%. So it's split with us and the employee. So if Warren County Public Schools were to say we will pay, and what we had originally budgeted for and presented in the budget meeting is that we would contribute 10% towards the employer portion, and then the employee would have the remaining portion of those benefits. So, I think the further you go to the right is kind of the doom and gloom to our employees. So the peach column is what we of course would always love to do for our employees, then cover 10%. If you go to the blue column, that is us covering 7%. Then yellow is 5, green is 3, and the orange is 0. So the thing to note, and to our employees as well, is the very bottom row. This would be the increase to them in the plan. So for example, an employee only from the Key Advantage 250 plan currently pays $161 per month. If Warren County Public Schools only paid 3% towards the benefits, that employee would then go up to $227 per month. And so instead of kind of running through that like I originally had, I broke out some examples of what a 3% and 7% would look like. I used our highest population, which is our teachers, in my examples. But first, before kind of moving into the scenarios, any questions on the large Excel sheet?
The total enrollment of 585, those are all employees, and then there might be more covered, like if they're a family or if they're a spouse or whatever. But the 585 is Warren County Public Schools.
Correct,
employees.
yes. And then that's built into, so you can see right now we have 59 employees in the Key Advantage 1000 enrolled in the family plan.
Can you tell me again, what are the lines at the bottom mean, monthly liability and 12-month annual liability?
Yeah, so the monthly liability, and that's just with all 585 employees. Our employees are responsible monthly to pay $144,149 per month, or $1,729,788 per year.
I gotcha.
Yep, so it's just multiplying who's enrolled in the plan with their cost.
And just for clarification, I don't think it's reflective in your spreadsheet, but this might be a Mr. Valentine question. If we look at this in comparative to the previous sheet we were looking at, the 3% cost to us contribution, which would be the green, I don't know
Yes,
if
the
we officially
green, yep.
named that, would be the 229,776 to us, correct?
Correct.
And then.
And that would be the difference between the WCPS cost, that row going across there, in between the gray, which we currently pay as an employer, 7,145,616, and jumping across to the green 3%, which would increase it to the 735,
Okay.
392.
And then
If
the
my
10
math's correct, that'll be the difference.
Yeah, and so doing that same math, the 10% is the 488,760. And so I would just like to do, and I can do it here myself, the math for the 7% cost. And 5%, but I can sit here and do it. So I just wanted to make sure I was doing that correct.
When you're talking about having us absorb the increase, when we're looking at are we looking at just absorbing that increase for our employee, and then whatever that increase for their family is, that's on them? Or is that you're just absorbing that 10% for the entire plan amount, their monthly payment amount?
I just want to make sure I understand. So if I'm a full-time Warren County Public School employee, if I have a Key Advantage 1000 family plan, that's just the cost for the plan, which it covers my family. There's no additional add-ons to that.
And I think what you're also asking
Or,
is.
I know, I don't
because-
know that I understood the question.
So I think what you're getting at is, right now, in the way that we presented in the original budget was, right now, if you look in that gray where it shows the,
Talking about the
for
dual.
WCPS cost is 7.1 million, ours is only gonna increase 10%. So we're only increasing
that's not-
10% on our side.
That's not what I'm
Okay,
referring
okay.
to.
I think it's one payment, so like, no,
Yeah.
they're not paying like,
Right, so
they're not paying like the whole percent for the rest of their family. 'Cause that
The
doesn't work
employee
that way.
contribution is increased on each tier, not just the employee only.
So when I'm looking at
Yeah.
what the employee receives as their benefit, what their takeaway there is, if I'm a single person, my benefit of Warren County Public Schools cost for the Key Advantage 1000 is $685, correct? And if I'm looking at the gray column.
Yep.
For just the employee, as a single person, my benefit is $685. But if I go down the chain and I have the employee if I'm married, then suddenly my takeaway from the county is $933. So I get a larger benefit if I'm married or if I have children,
Right.
which goes up significantly then to the $1,825 is the cost. So somebody who has children is getting almost 3 times the benefit, even though we only have one employee. So when I look at how our benefits in my family with my husband's benefits, when his employer eats the increase, they're willing to eat the increase for him. They're not willing to eat the increase for me or my children.
Okay.
So when I'm looking at these costs going up, we're eating the increase for the whole family or for the spouses, or not just the employees. So it's does that make sense if I explain it that way?
Yeah, I do understand, like, the total compensation package of an employee, right? So if I am, doing employee children, my total compensation package, I would get to add 1,825, what my employer is putting towards me. And then if I'm an employee only, then my total compensation coming home is only 685. So that I understand that part of it. As far as enduring the cost, that would take, I'm I'm trying to think through this, but we would have to look at restructuring, like what we contribute towards each plan to have it either more equally divided out or pending like what that benefit level is. Places I've worked before, it's usually just kind of a percentage of like, this is what we cover, and it's kind of broken down. It could be like a 90, 80, 70 type of percentage of just using round numbers. Here, it's just, we're kind of going off of what calculation has been done before and just adding in that 10.1%. So I hear what you're saying now. Thank you for re-explaining that. But we haven't adjusted what and who gets what. But we're just using the same formula to move forward.
So one of the other ways that other employees or employers that he's had is done is they'll say, here's your benefit. This is what it is. That our place of employment is willing to contribute this amount of money towards your benefit. Spend it as you will, and then we have to sit and we have to look at it and say, well, as a family of 4, I guess we're going to have to drop our coverage back a notch in order to, but then it's more fair because every employee who's working there has the same benefit payout from corporate.
Yeah. And that's more of like a cafe style, from what I've seen in the past, where and some people, like, you know, places I've been to, like, you could use it towards a gym membership, or you could use it, I mean, it was like an actual dollar, you know, really, that they could put in whatever bucket was allocated to them. It wasn't necessarily that it went into their check, maybe. So I've known those as kind of like a cafe plan. You know, right now, if we had 100% beautiful 801 full FTE, and we only have 585 employees enrolled, would you then think like, well, we would need to offer that to everybody? Because what if they don't want to take our benefits, but they like having that total compensation in their back pocket to then use somewhere else? Then it would actually, I think, increase pending that dollar amount. But I think
you either take the benefit or you wouldn't at that point. But yeah, those are just thoughts.
Yeah.
I think we also need to think about what is standard across other districts, especially in our area, because if you go to a system like that, I would worry that we're disincentivizing people who want to have a family, and just by the nature of our staff, we have a lot of people who start when they're young women and want to have a family, and we want them to stay here and not go somewhere else that has better health insurance if you became a family.
Well, and to be clear, I'm not suggesting any of this. I'm simply trying to clarify how outside of the school district things are done. Because obviously we're not in a bubble. We're not the only people, our employees are not the only people who have had a health insurance increase, right? Like the average American citizen saw an increase in their insurance rate by 7% this year. So we've all certainly felt it. I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding that whatever Warren County Public Schools is going to pay out, it's not just paying out the increase to our employee, but it's to their entire family. So that gets exponentially larger.
Pending the plan, right? All right. Any other questions on the Excel sheet?
I got my numbers, Mr. Valentine. It all worked out.
Did it?
Yes, it did.
Okay. All right, so that's just kind of the overall, what it would look like for our costs as Warren County Public Schools and the employee. So Dr. Ballinger had asked, like, hey, let's come up with some examples. Again, just pulled up teachers. They are our largest pool of employees, not trying to leave anybody out. I do think it might be worth having the conversation when you look at other salary scales, when, you know, looking at these examples. So, you know, your IAs starting off at year 0, they're making $17,000. We could round up to $18,000. If I put their numbers in here, this would look very different. So just being mindful, this is only for teachers. So we will start off with the 3%. Thank you, Sarah. With these examples. So if you have, a teacher with 4 years of experience getting a 3% inclusive salary increase, and if Warren County Public Schools only covers 3% of the employer portion of benefits. So what I did is I took their current gross salary, $55,215, right? So they're on grade 1, step 4. And if they're on the employee-only Key Advantage 250 plan, I like to call that one our Cadillac plan. It's absolutely wonderful. They are currently paying $161 per month or $1,932 per year. So that's the current. So now if they get that 3% pay increase, their new gross salary will be $56,871. If Warren County Public Schools only contributes 3% of the employer portion towards the benefits, the premium will then go up to $227 per month. The annual rate would go up to $2,724. So the salary difference from their 3% increase, they'll get to see a $1,656 increase. The difference in what they will now owe in insurance is $792, meaning that their gross take-home, this is all gross take-home numbers, would be $864. So once you start, taxing it and retirement, things of that nature, obviously, that would have an impact. And then in example 1A, again, that same teacher with 4 years of experience in going to our Key Advantage 1000 plan, but the family plan. So again, same salary, the premiums increase. So right now they would be paying $675 for that Key Advantage 1000 plan. It would then go to $837 per month, meaning $10,044 per year. So they would actually make less. So if you look at their 3% increase in what they get gross salary, the insurance difference and what they would have to now pay, they would actually make $288 less per year. And then in scenario 1B, again, still using the same teacher of 4 years of experience, but maybe they only have the employee only plus children on the Key Advantage 1000 plan. So I picked these 3 specific because they have the highest number of enrollment. I didn't want to just do employee only for all of them, so the top 3, not just employee only, because those are our top 2 highest, just for kind of a good scenario mix. So if that same teacher goes home and with the new rates increasing to $320 per month or $3,840 per year, they would actually take home less of $108. On page 2, just did the middle of the bunch with a teacher of 14 years of experience. So obviously, simple math, the more money you make or the more tenure that you have, the less of a financial impact that it would have on you as far as not losing funding, but it would still have an impact towards you. But it would look different from somebody with 4 years versus the 14 on page 2, or the teachers with 24 years of experience on page 3.
Thank you for putting these together. This is helpful to see, because it's hard to sit through all these numbers and see what that actually would mean for one of our employees. So this is really helpful.
You're welcome. So that was the 3%. If Warren County Public Schools only puts 3% towards the employee portion of the benefits, and then I did what if we did 7%. So still using, didn't want to change it up too much. Teacher with 4 years, 14, and 24 years of experience. But with 7% on page 1, example 1, yep, thank you, Sarah. We would have the same salary increase. The premiums obviously would then be the same, or would be different, because now they would go from like in example 1, $161 per month to then $199. So it's a lesser of an impact. So their salary difference is still $1,656. The insurance difference is $456, and their take home for gross for the year is $1,200. So in comparison to the 3%, instead of taking $864 home, they would actually get to take $1,200 home. And then if you look at 1A, again, teacher 4 years of experience, which I think from, even my example here today, most of our tenure was, between that 2 and 5 years of experience. That's where the bulk of our employees are right now. So it's a good example for the 4 years. But if they are on the family plan, the burden of their portion, right now, the employee would pay $675. It would then go to $784 per month, with a difference of $384 for the year that they would get to take home. And I just want to make sure we understand it's for the year gross salary, not, net. To put those out there. I didn't want to just sit here and read all of them for you.
It is
as you
helpful
look
to
through 'em.
see that the 3% salary increase doesn't really
Can I?
carry over.
I hate to do this, and I apologize, but can we go back to the big sheet? And Mr. Valentine, when I did the math for the 3%, I got the 229,776. When I did the math for, math is not my specialty, but when I did the math for the 10%, that's supposed to be 488,760. He added it to the one.
That's the
before.
cumulative.
So,
That's the
like,
difference
it's
between 3 and 10.
It's 718, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, then it's like 508,044, okay, so that is.
And then 370.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, thank you.
He had added from the 3%
I'll say Excel
I
Excel
gotcha.
did the math, so hopefully.
And I got from that other sheet,
From the other
okay.
sheet.
That makes sense, thank you for clarifying. All right, back to yours, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I don't have any questions on that, though.
Those are just the scenarios.
I just did the 5% while we were sitting here, and that takes everybody out of the negative, at least.
Yeah.
Takes 1A to a positive 36, take $36 for the entire year take home, and takes 1B to a positive $336 for the year, and takes 2A to $266 for the year.
And that's just
What was
the,
your 1A?
1A is $36.
and that's just the teacher's scale. If you were to look at maybe our instructional assistants or our bus drivers, that don't have the same salary scale, like that might not actually keep you in.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
without, yeah.
just on your scenario.
Yeah,
I just
no.
did the
Right,
5.
yeah.
Because we didn't want to pull scenarios for every,
Right.
we
Well,
just said, okay,
I don't know if
who's
that would
our,
be a good track of time, but-
who's the biggest piece of the pie? Let's just look at some things at those individuals.
So I'm trying to look at these, and I had thought that it would go up the same amounts, like in the peach column, everybody's price is going up 10%,
10.1, yes.
10.1.
Yeah.
And I thought, like in the blue column, everybody would be going up the same percent, but they seem to be different.
They are, but so in the blue column, we're only going up 7%, so that 3% that we were going up in the peach gets shifted down to the employee.
Yeah, but like, so employee only, Key Advantage 1,000, in the gray column, they're paying 55, in the blue column, they're paying 82, so that's like $30 higher. For dual family, in the gray column, they're paying 21, in the blue column, they're paying 83, that's like 4 times as much. So they're not all going up like 12% or something, right?
No.
It's gonna end
No,
up different.
they're from looking and coming in, it's not a even distributing percentage per like tier. So like the employee only, high deductible plan, like we offer that $0 to the employees and kept that across the board. Where, if we were to change it from right now, they're paying 0 and then we have to add in that entire percentage, like theirs would look perfect because they've never paid it. But the others, like it might be that we're covering 82% on one and only 74% on another. There's no, I don't know what the equations were or how it was calculated out before, but we just kind of kept it
That's
the
what I was
same.
asking.
I know,
That's
you
what
asked
I
that
was
last year,
asking.
and it's still the
So
same way.
if we were in the peach
Yeah.
column, our costs go up 10% for all the plans, and all of our employees' costs go up 10% for all the plans. But if we end up like in the yellow or green columns,
Right.
some people are paying 5 times the amount, and some people are paying 15% more.
Right.
So it's just all over the place. Okay.
Because the base calculation is
Right.
not even across
Right. Correct.
I think
Right.
that's what I'm saying, like, I think
Yeah.
that's what has to be addressed at some point, is the
Oh.
base calculation. Like, I've clearly
Right.
not used the right language or terms, but like, that is.
Yeah, I get that now, yeah.
That's-
No, and I don't disagree. I do think at some point, like, it has to kind of level out where we know the percentages in between, and I don't want to speak for anybody prior to me, but I think it was trying to make it more attractive to maybe not go to the 250 plan where we have to pay more. Like, maybe we made it more attractive for that 1,000 plan or that high deductible plan for them to go to, because I know my last company, we did that. Like, we tried to cover a little bit more on those other plans to kind of shift people that way. And I mean, just from the high deductible plan, it kind of looks like we maybe have done that in the past to bring attractiveness or retention, with like our dual employee and spouse. Like, that percentage has to be eaten somewhere else. Like, where did it go? So I wasn't here when those were done. I don't know that I know I probably would not remember the formula even if I was here, but it makes sense from like a recruitment, retention, attractiveness, and guiding path. So
And I think
yeah.
Rob's the only one that could probably speak on how long ago this
Well,
happened.
it's been a progression. Many years ago, the employer paid one fixed amount per employee regardless of which plan, which tier they were on. $640 sticks in my mind. I'm not sure if that
Yep.
was it.
It's in the
It
cafe.
probably was it back then. And then we found out that we were not at all competitive with surrounding school divisions, particularly Frederick, by paying just one fixed amount for an employee spouse, an employee child, or the family plan. So we worked to get that more competitive with the surrounding school districts, because we were losing a lot of people to Frederick County at that point, and health insurance, oh gosh, it was thousands of dollars a person could make more just by having a lower health insurance there. So that's why it's gotten there, and as Rachel's pointed out, there's really not a whole lot of rhyme or reason from a percentage or a formula basis. It was more a competitive market basis that drove us to come up with these amounts. Now, have we gotten out of alignment with some of them? I bet if you looked at them with some of the surrounding counties, maybe at this point we have, and maybe at some point it's worth looking at trying to get it more back in line with them. But that's basically how. But again, years ago, we had one fixed rate that an employee got regardless of which tier or which plan they picked.
I talked to Mr. Smith about this for a long time last year, and he explained it very similar to you, that basically it came to a point of wanting to use it really as a recruitment and retention tool for our teachers and families once they're here as two spouses, and then their families are here. That way their kids can go to Warren County Public Schools, and everyone is more likely to stay if they're
That's what I mean, like, and even not being here, like, I would have assumed it was for a retention and recruitment purpose, but how, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no formula for it.
So those are kind of the only documents and the updates that I wanted to provide concerning letting the board see where we are with the insurance and why on that first sheet we kind of listed that as our top priority. Yes, we need to make sure that we get some type of support for our reading intervention program, but we also need to look at making sure that it's my belief and my staff's belief that we need to make sure that we are also taking care of our current employees, because if insurance rates do go up too much, then we may be seeing a different issue as well. So I am concerned about that, and that is why, when you go back to that first sheet that we discussed with the 1%, 2%, that's why we listed that, to me, my goal would be that we try to hit that 7 to 10%. You know, as far as with the health insurance benefits, and if we have to make some other adjustments in some other areas, I mean, we can definitely look at that. But that's what I just wanted to provide an update where we're at, and then, of course, talk about the bonuses, kind of as we kind of see what's happening with budgets, and go from there.
I think all these documents are really helpful, and hopefully it gives the opportunity for staff members to look and see, these are the very real scenarios of what we'll be up against and what that total cost of the budget is, so this will give them the opportunity to sort of.
Yeah, and
see
actually, I
what-
could have Ms. Drake just email that to all staff members, and that way they have it. If that, I mean, that's not a, most of them get it from board docs anyway and look at it from board docs, but, I mean,
Is there a way, you talked about reducing the instructional assistant, the student support instructional assistants from 14 down to 7.
uh-huh.
Can we reflect that in the price? I mean, I just had done the math to just cut the number in half so it'd be from the 474 down to 237, but I would trust
Yeah,
your
so
math
Mr.
on that.
Ballantyne, what would be that, because I know you have that number for the additional 7 instructional assistants?
Well,
Would
yeah,
this
it'd be just half.
Okay.
It would be half, because they're all,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know if you calculated actual
Well, but
salaries
they
or
would,
what.
because the current seven
Yeah.
would be the current ones employed.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the
Yeah,
other
we would need
7
to
would
do
be
it.
projected at a certain step, 15 years? 15, so it wouldn't, I guess we could just figure half, but,
It wouldn't be exact.
yeah,
Approximately.
For budgeting, yes.
yes, for
I mean,
budgeting, I would say.
Is this our time for us to give feedback, like what we think? I'm just, obviously, we would love to be able to just give all the things to all the people. I am very concerned about the reading and the loss of these extra hands. And that puts a strain on the teachers as well, especially as they're going into this new reading curriculum and needing to break into small groups and have those extra hands. And I know now we're saying we don't need them, but for 2 years we've heard how important and essential they are to the reading, and
I just want to make sure, I'm not saying that we don't
Yeah,
need them.
I don't think we've said we don't need them.
I'm just saying,
anyway.
Well,
as
they're
far as
lower
when
on
we
the
look at
priority list.
sacrificing
It's-
and making adjustments, I'm saying, okay, let's find that happy median somewhere between insurance, and if we have to, you know, if we can't give the full 10% on the insurance, let's drop that down to 7%, but then let's also see if we're able to then at least give one instructional assistant. You're not going, we may not get 2, so we're not actually meeting the full need in both areas, but we are addressing.
But these are, you said they were ranked in order of desire, right? So
Well,
are they not? Because this is placing the priority on absorbing the 10% full insurance over all of the student support positions.
so it's ranked in order of, now, I'm not saying, you know, we use the 10% because that's where we want it to be. So when you look at that document, the goal of this document was, what do you get for 1% increase? What do you get for a 2% increase? What do you get for 5% increase? And that's what the county wanted to see. And so that's when we started saying, okay, for a 1%, this is how much insurance we could cover. At 2.64%, this is how much we could cover. Then if we get down into 2.87, this is something else we can get. And then when we get all the way down to 5%, because that was one of the requests that we had, what would you get for, or what would we be able to do for 5%? You would get everything above that 5%.
Right, so it's ranked. So it's a ranked choice. And it's placing the priority. It says on
insurance.
number 7, increase additional contribution from 3% to 10%. That's number 7. Then you've got number 8 is the bachelor level student support coach. Then number 9 is where you've got your 14 support instructional assistants. So it is placing the priority on the health insurance, the full 10% with the health insurance, over the helping hands for the reading.
It is placing, yes,
So I
emphasis
think
on health insurance.
What I would like to, on the 10%, what I'm saying is, as Dr. Pence pointed out, at 5%, there's at least a break-even point. So if we're talking about possibly cutting the 14, because these 14s, if we're cutting the 14 down to 7 for the IAs, then there's your meet in the middle point. The meet in the middle point for the insurance would be the 5%. But it's not prioritized that way. This prioritizes all of the insurance ahead of all of the positions. And that's where do I want to see the employees have to pay an increase in their insurance? Of course not. But do I want children to be able to learn how to read? Yes, I absolutely do. And I just have to look at what we know is going to come into the county, what money they have. It's not that they're big, bad, mean people who don't want to pay it to us. There's only so much money. So how can we do this in the most equitable way? And if we're in the business of educating children, it makes me sad to see these reading positions so low on the list and to see textbooks dead last. I don't know, in my head, the way that I think about things, the logic that I use is if we have this much money, how do we do the most good with that money? And when in doubt, always look at how you can help the children first. That's just how my brain thinks these things through. So if we could have other options given to us, because obviously we're talking about a budget's not going to be passed until when, June? So maybe we can look at some other options here, because I know that the Board of Supervisors has vocalized that they want to see us prioritizing student achievement. They want to see us prioritizing reading and these positions to keep the reading scores up. And I think as a division, we will receive a larger piece of that taxpayer pie if we place the priority on the children and find a happy medium middle ground to meet at with the insurance.
And just to be clear, on the peach column there, the 10%, that's the employer contribution going up 10% and the employee contribution. It's sharing that 10% increase between them. Now, that said, the employer pays on average, not on each plan, but on average, 80.5% of the total premium. So obviously the burden of doing each is much greater on the employer because the employer pays more than 50% of the cost on average.
So
Which
we haven't discussed
stinks.
any
It just
scenarios
stinks.
where their insurance don't go up, right?
No.
In every single scenario, they're going up at least 10%.
Yes.
That's the
That would be the
best
minimum
case in terms of
increase,
health
yes.
insurance rates.
Yes.
It looks like if we did the 5%, that it would be $348,000, like from our side, and then if we did 7%, it would be $210,492. Like, just for your math, when you're looking at the
Can you say
instructional.
that one more time? 348?
348,180 for 5% and 210,492 for 7% is what we would pay less.
And whenever we do have a budget, whether it's June or July, whenever it may be, we would be voting on this, right? I mean, this is just a conversation at this point, even though they are ranked by a priority. This isn't an action item, so we're not voting this priority into existence at this moment, right? We're just talking about it.
Well, I think that our
That's
priority
correct.
is going to influence how much money we get from the supervisors, though.
And I'm certainly not opposed to looking at that 5% and 7% too, to see, what we can continue to look at with that as well.
And yeah, I think it just gives an opportunity for everyone else to hear these are the things that are on the table. So hopefully they can read these documents, hear this meeting, and then reach out and say, this is what we'd like to see.
Well, and I think when the supervisors look at the budget, if it's a budget that is aligned with their priorities, I think they're more likely to come off more money than if it's not aligned to their priorities.
So, something I want to bring up and just discuss is, Mr. McFadden sent an email last evening or the night before. We met with the Board of Supervisors Monday, and something that Mr. McFadden, you shared with me, and I'm not sure if it was shared elsewhere, that you had additionally, after that Board of Supervisor joint meeting, I'm going to look at this email here. Give me 1 second, please.
Which,
in that you had some conversations with Board of Supervisor about things, and they haven't made any final decisions, but they were looking at a 3% increase to our local county funding, as long as it was spent in this manner. There's a little bit more. It goes on to say they would be willing to do 3% to their allocation if we put the money towards. So I would like to, in the faith of full transparency, read my response so that everybody understands where I feel, because I think this will kind of culminate how I feel.
this response hasn't been shared with.
I'm sorry?
Like, you didn't respond to.
No,
all
I
of
didn't,
us on
because
this.
I didn't respond. I responded to
Okay.
Tom, yeah.
But also, when you guys have your budget committee meetings, there's never anything uploaded with attachments to the agenda, and there's no minutes afterwards, so the rest of our board is left in the dark now.
Right.
And like
So
Dr. Costner,
if
when
you would give
do
me the
our
floor, if you'd let me
meetings
finish,
with
please,
the
I'd
building
appreciate
committee,
it.
You always type up the
As I was
minutes,
talking, I'd like to have the floor, please,
Right,
Chair,
but
Madam Chair.
I'm in a place of the dark because I don't know what even happened at your meeting, because you guys don't provide any minutes.
Right,
And now
because
you're
we're not
talking about an
required to,
email
but
that I
Madam
didn't
Chair,
even
if you could please let me have the
get
floor.
from you. Okay.
We'll come back to you.
Could you forward me the email that you
I
sent him,
would be
please?
happy to forward that.
Thank you.
But, and again, Tom has been an extremely valuable, member of our committee. Everybody has been, so I'm not sharing this with any kind of ill intentions. I just want to make it very candid and clear that it concerns me that the conversation piece or that it was brought to my attention as the conversation piece was, if we put the money towards. So I want to go over what, and I'm not going to read it verbatim. People can FOIA, that's fine. But it's extremely concerning that it was stated in that preference to me, because it says the authority to determine how those funds are spent rests solely on the school board. This is not just practice, it is law. The school board, we are an independent, nonpartisan elected body solely responsible for managing our budget, making operational decisions in accordance with state code. Any efforts by Board of Supervisors to prescribe how our funds are to be used constitutes complete overreach and fully undermines the clear and set governance structure that exists to protect the integrity of not only our school board, but their board. It undermines, additionally, the knowledge and experience that the staff of Warren County Schools, the actual people who know public school systems, provides and brings to the table. I just feel that we, as the school board, are accountable to our constituents, and we need to operate with transparency. And it highly concerned me that, it was proposed to me in an email that, well, if we do this, we can do this. That's concerning to me. So I want to share that with my fellow board members. Maybe I interpreted it not as it was intended, but I am, I'm open to that productive dialogue and the collaboration of all of us. That is what it needs to be, but it cannot include decision-making authority that is not at liberty to take from them. We have clearly, throughout the last 5 months, presented the school system based on data, based on our strategic goals. We've outlined these priorities. I understand if they have different priorities, and we want to hear them through a, joint discussion, public, I don't know why nobody brought that up to us, 3% at the meeting on Monday. But again, I'm just going to reiterate that the Board of Supervisors' role is to allocate the funds, with our board having the responsibility for directing and managing how those funds are used. It's not within the Board of Supervisors' authority to dictate how the funds are spent. That is a far overreach. It's unlawful. And additionally, us being asked to consider that is I feel it's very unlawful, and I won't take part in that. It's not if we'll give you this if you're going to spend it on this.
They'll give us extra if we're willing to support reading.
And
is a bad thing.
I hope that we can continue to have impactful conversations, as we move forward. But they don't. My whole point is we have this all lined out. We have this, but they don't get to tell us, we'll give you 3% if you absolutely only spend it on, let me see what was said, if they only spend it on
reading, like they said at the joint boards meeting, they asked us point blank
if you
we
only
would
spend it
commit to spend it on
retaining
reading.
the bachelor level support coach, the instructional support coach, and the non-labor allocation. Again, I'm not opposed to what their priorities are. Maybe it should have been framed a little differently. Maybe if it was framed to us as, these are our priorities, we hope that you will consider them. But to literally be a scare tactic for our board and say, we will give you 3% if you do this, this, and this. If not, you're going to look at level funding or 1%, I think is a scare tactic. I'm not comfortable with it. And further, if that is where we're at, then I want to hear from our teachers. I want to hear from our 802 staff members. What do you want us to fight for? What is it, if they're only going to give us 3%, if we do this, this, and this, is that what our county, the largest employer in the county, if they want us to do that, then let's do it. I'm completely, we'll do it. But if they also want to save and salvage the integrity of state code and what your roles are, to not micromanage and say, yeah, we're going to give you that, but you can put it, you only can put it towards that. That's just my thoughts, just my feelings of how I interpreted that. I do want to preface it with, we have been meeting since this January. A couple more things I just want to share during this conversational piece, and I will be done. We have been meeting, we put our suggested board dates, meeting dates. We had that all on our side, and Tom, I think you would concur with me. We had all of these dates. We had meetings for January. We had meetings for February with the Board of Supervisor Joint Committee. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for those meetings. We have only been able to meet twice with them. And we've had good discussions. We've had, you've presented what your priorities, because you know the school system. Every day in and out, your central office senior staff know, and you hear from your staff. So I stand by, and I think Tom and I have both said we stand by what you have presented. Well, we don't, we know the original 400, that's a big ask, but as your due diligence, it's your job to ask for what our needs are based on those needs. And so, I wanted to share that with everybody, because it just concerns me that it was presented I felt it was presented to me in that manner, whether it was intentful or not, that it was, well, we'll give you 3% if you do it this, this, and this, but if you don't, we're only going to give you 1%. And then you're still stuck with that. So that's all I wanted to share.
May I speak?
Absolutely. I
So
appreciate
it was
the
last year I was not on the budget committee, and last year we got zero. We got $0 additional funds. Zero. I don't want zero. I want to negotiate so I don't get zero. I'm having the conversation with people, not whole groups of people. The Board of Supervisors never, it's not the board that said anything. It's individual people that after that meeting we had talked to, some of those people met on their own, had discussions, and they weren't guaranteeing anything. They just said, based on what we heard, here's what we're initially thinking. We're going to have more details about it. Them suggesting to us as to what is more important to them and how they would feel better giving us money is not mandating how much money they're going to give us or how we spend it. That is not their role, as you stated. That's not what they're doing. But just like when the sheriff had to go to them last year and say, we're looking for these types of trucks, these types of fire engine, here's the things we want to spend our money on. They had to come with a wish list of here's what we want it spent on, and the Board of Supervisors made that decision about what they thought was worth spending the money on. The decisions, the discussion was, for me, was I want to negotiate with them and not sit there and be all haughty and say, how dare they tell us what to do? Because we sort of did that last year, and what did we get again? 0. I don't want 0, and that'll be my mantra over and over. I don't want 0. I want money. I want the teachers to get their insurance rates. Everything we just talked about tonight was just a bunch of, it was just a stirring of the pot. Because ultimately, we're not going to get 7% more added onto it. I mean, if it is, Greg, call me a liar. But we're not going to get that. They told us that we had our joint building committee meeting. We asked for 4.2, and someone looked at us and said, I will give you 2.1 if you can decide on these things, and we walked away from 2.1. Now we're saying, can we just scraggle out, 800,000 someplace? We've done it the wrong way, folks. We've done it the wrong way, and we're not negotiating. We're not there where we are. We have to compromise, not in a negative way, but to say they don't have a lot of money coming in. They don't have extra money coming in. We're talking about saying, oh, if we just do this or we just add these people, but look at the bill. It's going to be, we're talking about another 5%, is 1.4 million. They don't have 1.4 million to give us. They don't have it. If they did, I'm all for it. If they had it, I'm on this. I'm on this. I support this. If they had the money, but they don't have the money. So if they don't have the money, they have people coming out their hat in hand saying, I want the money. We're one of them. And if we're saying, well, we're not going to play games with you, we don't really care what you say, we're going to do what we think is important, again, that's our choice. And they know it's our choice. And no one's making us take their money. No one's making us do anything. They're just trying to figure out how they can divvy up their money to the people. And they're allowed to make decisions. They're allowed to have thoughts like everybody else can about what's important to their constituents and where it is. And so I have a personal relationship with some of these people, and we just had a conversation saying, well, where are you guys thinking on this thing? Where are you? It wasn't some illegal meetings of any sort. There wasn't any decision. There's no guarantees. It's just that's the thought of their budget committee. Just like our budget committee has thoughts, their budget committee had thoughts and said, here's what we're thinking. They're allowed to think that. They can't make us take the money. They can't make us to say we're going to put the teachers first regarding this support coaches. They can't make us do it. You are absolutely right. They cannot do it. That is our decision to do that. It's our decision to vote on that. But if they're saying, we can either get money or we can't get money, I'm okay with negotiating. That's it. I'm negotiating. I'm not. These are things that we've been talking about through the entire budget process. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with fighting for that and saying, we'll do, you want this stuff, you think this is more important than that, we think this is more important than that, let's hit some compromise to figure out how we can do it without breaking the bank of Warren County. And that's where we stand. It has nothing, it's not the importance, all these things are so important. I said the 14.2 or the 4.2 million, I told Dr. Ballinger straight to his face, I agree with all these are important things. There's nothing in there that's, oh my gosh, they're just blowing it on, fishing rods or something. There's nothing bad about it. It's just our county situation. Budgets are not made in a vacuum. We exist in Warren County Public Schools. We exist in the time we're in for whatever reason. It doesn't matter why we are, we just are. And so everyone has a decision. They are the ones that make the decision over our funding. Whether we like it or not, they are the ones that do it. And they have to be accountable to, they have lots of other knowledge about where their money has to go that we don't know anything about. And so our job is to try to be as easy as possible, in my opinion, to say, well, what's going to be something that they can live with and we can live with? And that was the point of my email.
Well, I do appreciate you clarifying that because the way I read it and the way it was written, I maybe that wasn't how you were intending it, but I did not read it as that. I read it very differently.
I would just say to all of that, the only thing that I've really heard any of the supervisors say publicly was the 2.1 million that was shared at our joint budget meeting, and actually the 7.1% does come in under the 2.1 million, and if the sticking point is the 10% insurance, then I think we've already talked about, okay, well, how much additional would that save if we dropped it to 5% or 7%? So that would take us even lower than the 2.055 million that we're at the 7.17%. And I think in the spirit of negotiations, since nothing has been discussed publicly since that joint meeting that we had, this would be us bringing our budget down to less than 50% of our original.
Well, the one thing that happened, the one, you're right, nothing has been verbally said about it, but at that meeting, following our meeting, when we were offered the chance to go for 2.1 and we didn't pick it up, they then made a policy about not raising the taxes, and as a result, there's no extra money. So the 2.1 is, I mean, I haven't been told that, but I'm just saying that it was on the table, and then following that meeting when we said we didn't respond really, they then changed, made a policy about how they're going to do the taxes for the year, and they decided not to raise them. So.
But that was immediately that same night.
Yeah, I know.
It was. That's how
Right.
fast. That's how fast it
Yeah.
goes.
So we were supposed to just sit there as a board
think
in front of them and just be like, okay, right now we're gonna take a vote. All of a sudden, we're just gonna slash it at 50%. We
No,
don't have any
they
plan.
wanted to hear that we were willing to verbally commit to, like they said, prioritizing the reading, and will your board commit that if we give you this extra money, you will spend it, you will take your vote and you will spend it in the way in which you agree upon. Because what most citizens don't recognize is that the budget, this is all just numbers. At the end of the day, once that money is given us, we could spend it however we wanted to. And that is what they are trying to, across the board, get across from. I've seen them renegotiate the fire department policies for their spending, and they're doing this with every department. If you are given taxpayer funds and you tell us that this is what you're going to spend it on, we expect you to spend it on those things. And clearly, the issue of reading struck a chord with them that night. I mean, clearly, they listened to the things that our teaching staff did say at those meetings leading up to it, and in the email saying, the reading, we need to keep these positions and whatnot. And so that tugged on their heartstrings. They were willing to come to the table with that, and we kind of balked at it. And yeah, we missed the boat. And I'm telling you, I stayed through the end of that entire meeting. They don't have the extra money now that they haven't raised taxes. It's not there. So, I mean, we're fighting for scraps at this point.
I mean, that wasn't a good decision if they're in a work session where there's not going to be a vote.
On our end.
I did not understand that.
I
they were
did
being
not.
offered
In
$2
all
million.
fairness,
That did not come
I
across to me.
explained this process repeatedly, and I've done so for 4 years. For 4 years, I have said, if you ask for too much up front, we're going to get nothing. And we have not had a single budget session go what I would consider well. And I did explain in my comments at other meetings and in other conversations that, look, this is the process for how this budget process works. We each put in our requests, they hear our requests, they take that into consideration, they are going to vote. I know I made the comment myself at that meeting, they're going to vote on the tax rate tonight. They have it on their agenda that they have to either advertise to raise taxes or keep it flat. I knew it was coming. I said it was coming. Nobody listened to anything I said. I said something about the health insurance rates were going to be a problem back in the beginning of fall. I hate to say I told you so, but they're a massive problem. I brought business cards in saying, hey, let's talk to insurance people, see if we can renegotiate things. I'm not listened to at all, and it's really a problem that these budget committee meetings are taking place with no attachments on the agenda and no meeting minutes afterwards to fill in the rest of the board as to what's going on. So we need to try a different strategy and approach here, because this is the 4th disaster year in a row, and I would like to see our school system get some money to help to get some money.
Well, yeah, I mean, the supervisors didn't even know that they were voting on the tax rate that night. We asked them point blank, and they didn't even know that they were doing that. So if ever in my wildest dreams, I thought that calling for a motion in the middle of a joint work session with the Board of Supervisors to all of a sudden slash our budget by 50% was gonna be the ticket, and we wouldn't be sitting here right now, and we'd have magically $2.1 million. Man, like next year, like, I guess we'll just rewrite how we do things from here on out, because that was my 6th joint session, and never has that ever been mentioned as an option or thought of as an option. We created this joint budget committee to try to improve things. It's, you know, I don't know that it's a two-way street in this communication process. I don't know that I agree. It's not achieving anything, because I think you have to have active participants all the way through the entire cycle. Yeah, I don't think that this is gonna be productive anymore tonight, so I'd like to just call for us to go into our closed session.
This motion is made that this open public meeting of the Warren County School Board become a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711. The school board desires to discuss the following matter in a closed meeting. Section 2.2-3711A1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, promotion, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of employees of the school board, specifically the personnel report and the personnel report addendum.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Need your roll call, Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Salins?
Aye.
Mr. McFadden?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Dr. Funk?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Can we get a motion to read out of closed session, please?
According to the votes reported by the clerk, the school board of Warren County does hereby certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Could you do roll call, Mr. Valentine?
Yes. Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Dr. Funk?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Mr. McFadden?
Aye.
Mrs. Salins?
Aye.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the personnel report and personnel report addendum?
I move that the personnel report and the personnel report addendum be approved as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?